Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto is the leader of Jinchuuriki. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Meinos Kaen and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Prologue. It was an unusual thing for the village of Sand to ask something of their allies. The official shinobi village of the Land of Wind, even after the historical pacts following the last great shinobi war, had never thought of the other villages as real allies, not even the neighboring ones. Not even Konoha, who has always been the most peaceful among the various villages. But, indeed, the meeting had been the Kazakiyage's request. The meeting had been decided to be held in Konoha. Among the 5 villages it was the one who had never shown any signs of a lust for power or expansion, even if it was commonly reputed as the strongest one among the big 5. The Kazakiyage had been the first to arrive, after the Sandaime Hokage. That irked Sarutobi's curiosity. It seemed that whatever he wanted to discuss with them, it was important to him. By minutes, the other Kages and the ninja leaders arrived in the room. The Kazakiyage observed and waited patiently and silently, observing the people he had summoned arrive one by one. The Mizukage, the Tsuchikage, the Reikage, and the leader of Takigakure. The man waited for a few more minutes of complete silence, since it seemed the leaders were studying the others and the terrain. I thank you for your cooperation. I know that this meeting has been organized in a haste. Began the Kazakiyage, earning a snort of laughter from the leader of Kumagakure. Haste, right. It has all been made in less than a week. The ebony-skinned Kage rubbed one of his small mustaches with his right index finger and thumb. I understand that such an hastiness for a meeting between leaders is unusual. But I believe you will agree with me on the importance of the matter I wish to discuss. It concerns all of you as well. The leader of the Hidden Sand turned to one of the 2 shinobi accompanying him. The shinobi in question opened his weapon pouch and got out a scroll from it, opening it on the ground right in front of his feet. The Kazakiyage noticed that the other leaders got nervous at that, apart the Hokage. The Tsuchikage particularly looked ready to extract something from her right sleeve. After all, in the last great shinobi war, Konoha had been Iwa's nightmare. Even if the reason of that fear had disappeared 6 years prior, old scars hardly died down. But the scroll was harmless. Just by observing the writings on the paper they could see that it was a simple storage scroll. The shinobi did a few hand seals and placed his hands on the scroll. A small cloud of smoke appeared and soon disappeared to leave place to a few yellow envelopes. The shinobi got back on his feet and handed one to the Kazakiyage and the other 5, one to each of the shinobi accompanying the various leaders. Please feel free to let your attendants open them so that they can confirm that they contain just pictures. Photographs. The ninjas began to check the envelopes. First by touching them, then by opening them and checking the contents. The Hokage turned to another one of the ninjas accompanying him, a member of the Hyuga clan. The ninja confirmed that, indeed, the various envelopes contained just 6 copies of the same set of photos. The ninjas started handing the envelopes to their leaders, who promptly picked the photos from the envelope and laid them on the table right in front of them. What's the meaning of this? As the Kazakiyage had foretold, the first one to have a noticeable reaction had been the Reikage. And he noticed that the Hokage too had become unnerved, even if he hid it perfectly. For anyone but a Kage. The sets is made of 9 pictures, each one of a different person. Some are familiar to all of you, some just to one of you. But they all have something in common. The Kazakiyage pronounced those words with calm and collection, but it did nothing to soothe the raging Reikage. The dark-skinned man smashed his right hand clenched in a fist on his side of the marble table they were sitting at, smashing part of it to pieces. I want to talk right now. He used his free hand to smash in front of him 2 of the pictures. I want to know how you came in possession of a picture of my younger brother and another citizen of my village who has never even left it. I must say, I'm quite surprised as well. The Mizukage brushed his chin and gently laid down in front of him 2 pictures different from the Reikage's ones. The message I received requesting a summoning made me worried, and the fact that the envelope contained pictures made me think that we would be talking about missing nins. Instead he lifted the gaze from the pictures and shifted it to the Kazakiyage. Instead, I find pictures of small kids, including a civilian and an academy student from my village. All small kids, indeed apart Rashi and Han. The Tsuchikage passed a finger on her lips instinctively, observing the 2 pictures regarding the only adults represented, which were ninjas of her village too, and not just any ninjas. They were war heroes. Heroes of a war they had lost, but still heroes, as in the sense that they held back powerful enemies so that many other ninjas could survive. And I think that maybe I understood. There's one thing these 2 have in common and you said the others do too. They're all Jinchuuriki, right? The leader of Takigakure decided to voice his thoughts. He didn't have a big spy network, being the leader of a minor ninja village, but they didn't need a 200 points of IQ to put together everything. Rashi and Han. They were famous shinobi for their battles in the last two shinobi wars, the former, the last one the latter. But what they were known for mostly was because of them housing two-tailed beasts. And since among those pictures there was his own Jinchuuriki. Indeed. You're quite sharp. The leader of Takigakure smiled and adjusted his long hair behind one of his ears, the scar on his nose slightly showing. The Kazekage continued his speech. In total, we have 2 Jinchuuriki from Kumagakure, 2 from Iwa, 2 from Kiri, 1 each from Suna, Taki, and Konoha. Sarutobi's hand went rigid, clenching on the marble table a little. He knew that at least one of the other countries would sooner or later become aware of Naruto's condition, but what was the Kazekage's plan? Kazekage Dono, you do realize you've probably just exposed to everyone here something that the others wanted to keep a secret. It's not really a big deal, that, Sarutobi. The Raikage said, clenching and unclenching his right hand, sounds of bone cracking coming clearly from him. The Hokage turned to him a bit confused. Sooner or later they wouldn't be a secret anymore, since they all are to become ninjas. What I'm mostly pissed off about is the fact that spies were sent into my village to spy on them. Indeed, Kazekage Dono, this is something I do not understand. The Mizukage continued, his voice still soft and almost soothing, so much that it was almost creepy. A male had no right to sound so. Why go out of your way for something like this? As Raikage Dono said, it's basically useless Mareso. It confuses me the fact that you revealed your own Jinchuuriki. This helps me understand that you're not doing this to scorn us or something, but still confusing. Ligara, he's probably the main reason of this meeting. The Kazekage picked up one of the photos and put it at the center of the table, showing the figure of a child with red hair sitting in a swing. The other cages picked the same picture as well. Gara is my own son. My youngest one, and he is the host of Shukaku. The Ichibi then, I suppose he has been experiencing the same problems as his predecessors. Asked the Hokage, knowing well that among them, Suna probably had the worst sealing technique for Jinchuuriki or maybe the best one, depending on how one looked at it. More than sealing, the technique was called of possession. The demon and the host continuously struggle for control over the body, so much that the person can rarely get sleep. But in exchange for that, the host gained peculiar abilities. To do something like that to his own son. Yes. But that's not what's worrying me. The Kazekage raised his head and slowly turned it from side to side. The child has problems controlling his powers. This because of his emotive problems that heavily influence his psyche. The source of his problems are mostly the other inhabitants of the village and the demon's influence. The Sandame's hand clenched a little more, thinking of how that situation sounded so much similar to the one he had in Konoha. I am sure that, even though in different measures, you have experienced these kind of problems as well. The Kazekage continued, earning a chuckle from the Tsuchikage, who seemed pretty entertained from the man's last words. I am sure as and I've spied on them, right, Kazekage Dono. But I understand what you're saying. The woman crossed her arms under her covered chin, her eyes showing a devious smile. Rashi and Han too, in the beginning, were looked upon and treated as they were death incarnate to both our village and the enemy. They needed to go to war and come back after killing hundreds to change that. True. In my village I punish harshly who even dares to look in a bad way at my brother, but some of them just can't help it. The Raikage scratched his chin while grumbling a little under his breath. And with Yujito they're even worse, the girl puts most of her life into training just to avoid other people. And she's just 8, for foo. We do not need to know for whose sake, Raikage Dono. Interrupted the Mizukage, rolling his eyes a little. Such a fool, for a cage. Well, I still don't see the reason of this meeting. My own Jinchuuriki are yes, treated like they're lower than dirt or just feared and avoided, but it's just a side effect we all have to deal with for such weapons as themselves. The leader of Takigakure felt a little guilty at that. While he didn't have the same value for human life as the Mizukage did, he still had made the choice of turning a baby girl from his village in a Jinchuuriki, exposing her to the scorn that came with being a weapon of such power. Yes, he had created a weapon. The things is, Mizukage Dono, that we're basically handling living bombs. The Kazekage replied, slowly shaking his head from side to side. We've sealed beings of incredible power able to wipe out villages into babies, who are now children who are, by default, extremely easy to influence in any way. The man laid out the 9 pictures in front of them, one by one, and then removed the 2 of the only adults in the group. They are feared and hated because of this, but what if they start to hate back? We seal the tailed beasts into hosts so that we can control their power, but if they give in to hate, will the tailed beasts be the one controlling their hosts? Or will they just give in to certain suggestions? I know myself that they tend to be rather persuasive. I have to agree. It has happened twice, with Han. The Tsuchikage still remembered the times when the boy, during the war, gave in to the beast's offer of help on the battlefield. Too bad that the beast didn't care much about who got into the way of the slaughter it brought. Good thing Rashi noticed the thing and made everyone from Iwa leave the battlefield. It can prove more detrimental than anything else in case of that happening. And I suppose that having the hosts into submission wouldn't do any good, either. So the Mizukage raised his head and looked at the Kazukiage with seriousness. Do you maybe have some kind of idea, Kazukiage Dono? I say we make them meet. He said. Those few simple words caused mainly surprise, but in Saratobi's case they caused much indignation. I think it would be for the best. Yes, make them meet. Like an annual Jinchuuriki camp or something. The Mizukage joked, cover his eyes in sign of mocking disapproval for the idea. But. That was my idea, yes. The Kazukiage didn't even blink, since that was pretty much his idea. In return, he made the Mizukage blink. We must remember that we're talking about children, here. We don't know how much pressure they will be able to handle before they snap, and we found ourselves with an emergency on our hands. So you basically say we make them meet periodically, like, once a year. The Reikage rubbed his chin and thought about it, trying to find possible traps. The leader of the Hidden Sand nodded. Yes. I propose we rotate the country for the yearly meeting between us, or we can just choose a neutral country. The point is to put them in an isolated environment. Just them and 2 of our most trusted shinobi for each village to guard them. The Kazukiage kept on talking with cool and collection, something that you would have usually expected from the Hokage, instead. But the Fire Shadow was visibly nervous, by now. These children need more than just peers, they need to form relationships with people akin to them, so that they can understand each other. Something like this will be a stress reliever for them till they reach a suitable age. HMPH. Right. And tell me what it comes in for me and my village, Kazukiage Dono. The Mizukage didn't like the idea at all. As I've already explained, the benefit of not having your weapon suddenly turn on you should be more than enough, Mizukage Dono. Seeing as all our villages are allies, I don't see any reason for why you should be opposed to the idea, especially with how harshly you treat the 2 in your care. After all, it's not like you would plan of using them to invade one of the other major countries, right? The Shadow of Wind seemed to have planned everything, since the Mizukage TSK'd and then fell silent. Even if there was some plan like that, he couldn't just voice it out. I'm in. The first agreement came from the leader of Takigakure, as he had predicted. Akin to the Hokage, the man was more human than most shinobi, so it was obvious he would care more for the mental health of his Jinchuuriki. Also, it wasn't like he could refuse an offer, a request from the major villages. It was a little honor to even be sitting with them at that table. This would help strengthen the alliances between villages and at the same time get rid of the danger of having a serious Bijuu problem on our hands in the future. I agree with Kazukiage Dono's plan. Well, I guess the Kurabi will be happy to have some new heads to bash in. The Reikage thought about it, and he guessed that getting out of the family estate before he turned genin would be helpful. And Yujito would benefit from it largely. Alright. I think we can make that happen, but if I discover that this is some kind of elaborate plan too. I'm sure it's nothing of the sort, Reikage Dono. It seems a pretty valid idea. I think I'll join in as well. The Tsuchikage seemed more entertained from the situation by the second. The Kazukiage had foretold that too, even if it was maybe the only uncertainty in his plan. To tell the truth, I wouldn't dare thinking of you agreeing to the plan, Tsuchikage Dono. After all, there's nothing in for yourself, your Jinchuuriki are grown-up men. The woman just chuckled. My, Kazukiage Dono. As you've said, we're allies. I don't always need to immediately gain something from an agreement. But rest assured, even if the thing went unnoticed by everyone in the room, the woman had focused her gaze on one thing, or better, one photograph among the 9 in front of them. I will have my share of benefits from this agreement. I see, Mizukage Dono. The water shadow seemed to emit a mix between a low growl and a snort. Sign that he was displeased. Basically, the Kazukiage had him where he wanted him. After showing his open displeasure earlier, the argumentations put on the table, and the fact that most of the room had agreed with him. Fine. I suppose that a little Kunoichi camp each year will help the social skills of my weapons. You never know on which missions they could be sent. He said, rapping the fingers of his right hand on the table. The Kazukiage nodded and then turned to the last shadow in the room. I refuse. That made everyone but the Kazukiage be surprised. They turned to Saratobi Hizarin, whose eyes were narrower than what he had ever seen. I'm not going to send a boy who still hasn't even begun his academy training. I thought that you would be reluctant, Hokage Dono. After all, the Kazukiage picked up the picture of the only male blonde among the 9 people in the photographs. A small kid with strange marks on his cheeks. The boy Uzumaki Naruto, right. His turning into a Jinchuuriki has been a case. And you still haven't broke the news to him. What? To say that the Reikage was surprised was an euphemism. They didn't need an eagle to understand which Bijuu the boy was housing, taking into account Konoha's history and the markings on the boy's face. You mean the boy doesn't know of his condition? No. And I plan for it to stay that way. The boy has got to have a chance at living a normal life. The Fire Shadow replied fiercely, but he noticed that the Reikage and the leader of Takigakure had narrowed their eyes. Hokage Dono, I must say that I'm very disappointed in you. That made everyone in the room turn to the Takakage. It was a first. A leader of a minor country talking in that fashion to a cage. I thought you wiser than that. I support his line of thought, Sarutobi. I know that you had the best intentions, but you're handling this boy's situation in a bad way. Sarutobi stared back at the Raikage, waiting for him to continue. Can you even imagine how the boy must feel? A whole village hating him and he doesn't know why. Don't you think that he deserves to know why his life sucks? If he gets to know of his situation, he will finally understand that it's not because the other people are mean, but just stupid. He will also understand that he's not to blame, as he has surely asked himself many times. The leader of Takigakure took word again, and this time his words had a good effect. You said that you want to give him a chance for a normal life, Hokage Dono, but he's never got that chance to begin with. But now you have the chance to make it a happy one. Sarutobi's hand scraped the underside of the table, thinking about his chances. He was at a stalemate there. Everyone but him had agreed. And on top of that, those words held truth in them. Did Naruto really had no chance at a normal life? Maybe if he had chosen to remain a civilian, but he would begin the ninja academy the next September. I agree on one condition, though. What would that be, Hokage Dono? Asked the Kazekage, once again taking the reins of that discussion. The first instance of this joint training camp the Hokage suggested the official facade they would use for the rest of the world is to be held in Konoha. Very well. I agree with those terms. Are there any complaints? None were raised from the remaining 4 leaders. The Kazekage nodded. Very well. I'm happy that we have come to a successful agreement. Now, we should discuss the time and Sarutobi's attention for the rest of the meeting would be split between taking part to the meeting and thinking about how to break the news to a 5-year-old. Breakline. The first joint training camp of the allied villages will take place in Konoha's territory. It will have a duration of 10 days, starting from the 1st of July and ending on the 11th of the same month. It's required of the yada yada yada. Damn, the only thing worse than Kurabi's rap is paperwork. The Raikage's words were met by the inquisitive gaze of his attendants. Kurabi's rap was annoying as hell. He laughed. Ahaha. Yeah, maybe I'm exaggerating. But I bet that he will have a sudden flock of inspiration when he knows of this. What about Yujito-san, Raikage-sama? At that question, the Raikage replied with a snort and another round of laughter. Ahaha, the little princess will probably throw a fuss about how useless the thing will be, while hiding the fact that she's indeed curious about knowing other people with the same condition as hers, and as such, with the same kind of power. Breakline. Tsuchikage-sama, am I allowed to talk? Please, do. I've actually been waiting for someone to ask me. The reaction of her attendant was priceless. She chuckled darkly. My, it's obvious what you wanted to ask me. What possibly could I gain from this agreement? After all, both our Jinchuurikis are grown-up men, not snotty brats. She then picked out again the envelope that the Kazekage had provided her with and picked out a single photograph from it. This is the reason of my agreement. Her attendant grabbed the pic and observed it closely. It was the pic of Konoha's Jinchuuriki. His eyes widened. Why you I mean, it can't. Stunning, isn't it? The resemblance. Breakline. DSK I hate it. The Mizukage had the bad habit of eating his nails when really nervous about something. This time, it was the fact that he had basically been tricked into agreeing to that. Well, I guess we can still make something out of it. Be sure to assign our best intelligence gatherers as guardians of this playground. Yes, Mizukage-sama. Breakline. The leader of Takigakure observed the horizon while he and his 2 attendants traveled back to their village. He thanked the gods to let him have found some way to repent himself, to make amends for what he had done to a little girl, for the greater good. He had made her agree with sweet words, but he still regretted it. Be sure to notify Fu as soon as we go back. Breakline. A marvelous performance, Kazekage-sama. Everything went as planned. The leader of the Hidden Sand was already on his way back, the border of the Fire Country already near. I must say I had some doubts that it would all go so smoothly. But, must I say, was it really worth all this trouble, Kazekage-sama? We get rid of him and we managed to blame it all on someone else. We could even get some profits out of it. And this someone else being Konoha is the icing on top of the cake. The Kazekage said, allowing himself a metaphor for once, even if it wasn't exactly his style. Also let the child die without knowing why or who. It's out of pity. Breakline. The Hokage had been faced with harsh decisions and hard tasks ever since the days of his prime as a ninja. But he felt like this one was going to be the hardest yet. To soften the blow he would have to use all that he knew about psychology. For the moment, he had to approach the target. There he was, on a swing, trying to swing himself as high as possible, standing on his toes and jumping before letting himself be pushed forward, just to realize that he had to have a solid grip on the chains, otherwise he would end up flying and impacting the ground face first many other times. The Hokage instinctively palmed his face. "Oh, the ground is hard. Otherwise he would crack under the weight of all that ramen that you eat daily, Naruto." The hyperactive blonde forgot about the pain on his nose, hearing the voice of one of the few human beings that bothered to talk to him, greeting him with a grin. "Aji-san." He immediately got back on his feet, cleaning himself from the dust and the sand that he had collected with that last fall. "It's been a while." "Yes. I am sorry, but I've been very busy. Being Hokage is not an easy work." Naruto grinned at that, crossing his arms behind his head. "You should just let me take your job, old man. You're getting too old." The Sandaime patted Naruto on top of his head, ruffling his hair. "So? What's up?" "Well, I had to talk with you about something." "Something big, Naruto." That made the child blink. The Sandaime motioned for him towards the swing on which he was sitting before. Naruto complied and sat on it, dandling his legs from it. "You see, recently I had a meeting with all the other cages." "Eh? But weren't they all dead?" Sarutobi had to use chakra to stop gravity from dragging his face to the ground. Lots of chakra to strengthen his body. It helped remember that he still hadn't even started the academy, so it wasn't like anyone had told him those basic points about the world of ninjas. "Naruto, there are 5 shinobi in the world whose title ends with Kage, Shadow. 1 for each of the major villages." Naruto opened his mouth in an O of understanding. The Hokage sighed. "And we've come to a sort of agreement basically, it's training camp for young ninjas or ninjas to be, between the various allied ninja villages." Needless to say, Naruto jumped out of the swing and began to do a little victory dance. Even if the Hokage was sure that he didn't even know what a training camp was. "Naruto, the big news isn't that." That made Naruto stop. Not the words themselves, but the tone the old man had used. Naruto knew that he used that tone only when he gotten real serious about something. He stopped dancing and screaming of how awesome he was and stared at the Sandaime's face. "Naruto, this also has to do with why most people treat you badly." That got Naruto's attention alright. He swallowed and sat on the swing again, beside the Sandaime, who drew in a silent but heavy sigh. "Naruto, you know about the Kyuubi, right? The demon who attacked the village 6 years ago." Naruto nodded. Of course he knew. He idolized the 4th Hokage, and the day the fact happened was also his birthday. "Well, you must know that the Kyuubi is one of a group of 9 demons. They are called Bijuu." Bijuu. Naruto pronounced the word, like just to see if it felt coming of his mouth. "Tailed beasts." "Exactly. This because each demon has a different number of tails. The Ichibi 1 tail, the Niobe 2, and so on to the Kyuubi, who has 9 tails." The Sandaime was about to tell Naruto that the Bijuu were immortal since they were beings made of chakra and as such they couldn't be killed in a conventional way, but he remembered that the boy didn't know what chakra is. "There's the fact that the Bijuu are basically immortal. They can't be killed." "Eh? But the 4th Hokage did kill it," Naruto replied, going by memory of the story how he had heard it. The Sandaime shook his head. "No, Naruto. Sadly, the Kyuubi couldn't be killed. Not even the 4th Hokage, with all his power, was able to kill it." Naruto's face was showing more confusion by the second. Sarutobi decided that it was better if the boy got to it on his own instead of hearing it from him directly. "Naruto, answer this question. There's a criminal. But you don't want or you can't kill him. So, what do you do to make it do no more harm to other people?" Naruto brought a finger to his lips, thinking about it very hard, squinting his eyes he suddenly clapped his hands. "You put it in prison." The Sandaime nodded to acknowledge that he had made a correct statement. "So the Yondaime put the Kyuubi in prison somewhere?" "Yes, but not exactly somewhere. No real prison could hold the Kyuubi. He put it in prison inside of something." Naruto blinked at that. He had put it in prison inside of something. But what? Suddenly, he saw the Sandaime raise his right index finger and use it to tap his forehead. Or better, he put it in prison inside of someone. Naruto needed less than 10 seconds to connect the dots. Even if he looked like a goof, he wasn't less intelligent than his peers. Or maybe it was just that, he didn't know why, connecting the dots about that particular matter had been so easy he brought his tiny hands to his chest, feeling his heart picking up speed. I didn't tell you because I wanted you to at least try to have a normal life, Naruto. As they say, ignorance is bliss. But you've decided to become a ninja so I don't see any reason to keep on hiding this from you." Naruto brought his hands to his head and shook it around, sign that he still couldn't understand something. But I mean, if I keep people protected from harm, why do they hate me? Shouldn't they be thankful? Instead. It's because they're stupid or just too afraid." Naruto slowly raised his head to meet the Hokage's gaze. "People aren't perfect, Naruto. Even if they know that it was the Yondaime who sealed the demon into you, they fear that one day he could break out, or they think he already has done so and took control of your body, or that you have never been human to begin with." "But that's not fair." Naruto's eyes started to tear up. It was like, knowing the reason of that harsh treatment, it had become even colder to him. Sarutobi sighed. Naruto, you must know that this is a secret to people your age. And I'd advise you to keep it a secret if you want to make some friends, but it's up to you, and there are some exceptions. Naruto blinked at that. Sarutobi patted his legs. Now, it was time for the second thing to do. Hoping it would cheer him up a bit. You remember what I told you before about the Bijuu, right? How many of them there were? 9, right? Sarutobi nodded. Exactly. 9 Bijuu for a total of 9 people hosting them. Naruto blinked at that, the tears stopping for a while. The Hokage smiled at him reassuringly. There are other people like you, Naruto. Most of them are around your age. We and the other cages have agreed to make you meet. You mean they won't hate me even if they know? The Hokage shook his head. Not at all. They're in the same situation as you, so they would understand what you're going through. But from there to making them your friends is another matter. It all depends on you. Naruto sniffed and stopped crying at that, rubbing his eyes. Since this involves a secret, even what this camp really is will be secret, Naruto. You can't tell anyone the real reason you out of all people is going there. Yes, Jai-san, I'll just tell who asks that I'm going to. Naruto pushed his lips forward cutely, trying to remember exactly what words the Hokage had used a few moments before. Join training camp with the allied villages of the Leaf. Ah, it starts on the 1st of July. It will be held here in Konoha. Break line. 2 weeks later. So, let's go over the rules one more time, Naruto. The child puffed his cheeks out. They had done nothing but that for the last 3 days. Dai-san, it's one of the few things in my life I remember perfectly by now, along with how you cook ramen. The camp is 10 days long and I can't leave the place till it's over. I should try to not get into fights and I can't show any techniques of my village to other people. But I don't know any, Jai-san, so the last part is useless. Exactly. And in case you need something, you can ask the 2 supervisors of the camp, since they were the oldest Jinchuuriki alive, the 2 from Iowa had been given the task of supervising the younger ones. But Tsuchikage, surprisingly, had offered the 2's help also for some teaching. As in, how to deal with their unwanted guests. Or one of the 2 ninjas behind me. Dog-san and Owl-san, alright. This makes the Naruto still hadn't learned to count over 500, sadly. A lot of times. He said, he then turned to the gates of the place where they would be staying. They were big and of wood, like a miniature of the palisade that surrounded Konoha. What is this place again, Jai-san? It's an old place where Anbu trained, Naruto. It's well protected and hidden from everyone, but who knows how to get to it. The Hokage wasn't about to start explaining to Naruto about selective genjutsu, so that explanation would suffice. There's a courtyard, a few barracks, and a small pond. It's not been used in a couple years, but it's still in good shape. That was another lie. The place was still used, but from that day onward it wouldn't be anymore. Alright. Naruto stopped in front of the gates to observe them, and when he turned around again, the 2 masked ninjas walking with the Hokage weren't there anymore. He blinked. If I want to talk with them, how do I do it? They'll know when you do want. Well, the Hokage stepped in front of Naruto and opened the doors a little. What was needed for Naruto to walk inside? Have fun, Naruto. I will, Jai-san. Naruto nodded and then swallowed. He was a bit nervous but nonetheless, he really wanted to go inside there. In those past 2 weeks, ever since he had discovered about the Kyuubi, he had felt even worse around the villagers, but at the same time, he was looking forward to those 10 days. He started to walk towards the open doors and walked past the Hokage, gripping the straps of his backpack hard. The Hokage slowly closed the door behind him till it closed with a small sound. I hope you do get a happy life, Naruto. The Hokage whispered silently, turning around right after and starting to head back to the village. Leadership. Bukai, Chapter 1. Beginnings. Naruto took a few steps behind the door before stopping to look around. As the Hokage had said, the place was kinda plain. The main courtyard was very large and there were barracks here and there, along with a few trees to provide shade. He could make out the pond and in the center of the courtyard, a group of people. He swallowed. There he was. He began to walk towards the group, taking in the people that made it up. One by one. The first who caught his attention was a boy of his same age sitting on the ground. He caught his attention because of the teddy bear he was carrying around and because of his hair. He had never seen such a color. So red and why there was black around his eyes. Then, there was the only member of the group who was even younger than him. He couldn't be more than 4 years old. He too had a particular kind of hair. They were of a strange kind of gray, what was the name, platinum. But not only that. Even his eyes were strange, they were pink. Also, he was crouched down, sitting silently, observing a single flower on the ground between his stretched legs. There was another one in the group with strange eyes and hair and skin. She had tan skin, orange eyes and aquamarine hair. She seemed to be around his age. She was sitting on the steps of one of the barracks near the kid with the red hair, reading a little book. She looked around his age. It seemed that people around his age were over. Those who remained were all older. There was a kid with black hair, very slender also, he could see just one of his eyes, the right one, since the other were covered by his hair falling in front of his face. And even the uncovered one was almost completely closed, so much that he could hardly make out its color. Thankfully it was black as well. He was standing near the pink-eyed boy, observing his actions with his arms crossed in front of his chest. Then, another boy. This one was very particular, other than being at least 10 years old. Maybe more, judging from his height. First thing, he had never seen someone with such skin. Dark brown, so dark also, he had white hair, like cream. Why they were tied up in that silly way. Also, he wore sunglasses. And a bandana around his forehead. He was particularly focused, it seemed. He was writing things on a small book with a pen. The only other girl of the group seemed to like black a lot. Also, she was probably the only one dressing like a ninja, even if it was not a real training camp. The others' kids were all dressed in t-shirts and short pants apart. The boy with the red hair, who had some kind of cloak draped around his shoulders. The girl had long blonde hair, but of a darker shade than his own, tied in a ponytail, and she was wearing lipstick. No, those were her real lips. The underage people were over. The other two people who he could see were both grown-ups. One had the same hair color as the kid with the teddy bear, and he seemed quite old. Not as old as Jai-san, but still old. He was wearing brown clothes. A long-sleeved jacket and pants, and long black boots. Also, it seemed like he had some kind of big tattoo over his nose and cheeks. He was sitting with his eyes closed on a rock beside the pond. Then, the last one, he couldn't tell exactly how old he was. The only thing he knew was that he was enormous, more than 6'6", and that he couldn't see anything but his brown eyes. Everything else was covered by either cloth or some kind of red armor, and was that a chimney on his back. It let out smoke. He was standing with his eyes closed and his arms crossed, leaning against a tree, also near the pond. He swallowed even more. He was so nervous. But it seemed that they had noticed his arrival, or maybe they had heard him swallow. All he knew was that the old man had opened his eyes and focused his gaze on him. He raised one of his hands and waved it weakly. Hi. It seems that everyone's here. The old man got up from his sitting position, while the bigger man pushed himself away from the tree. They began to walk towards the center of the courtyard. He instinctively approached them as well. The Hokage had told him that the camp supervisors were going to be the two grown-ups of their group. The two stares immediately focused on him, since he was the first one who had approached them. Well, I honestly thought you would be the first one to arrive. You're the host, after all. I'm sorry. He replied, his head low and his voice apologetic. The man shrugged. It's no big deal. Just surprised. Now, gather around, children. Continued the red-haired man. Everyone obeyed, some more slowly than the others. The last one to reach the group was the kid with the dark skin, who had to use some willpower to stop writing things on his handbook. When they were all gathered around him, the man started observing all of them one by one. Alright. Just a little reminder of the rules, then we will begin the introductions. Even if this is supposed to be a way to strengthen ties between allied villages, we won't ask you, and you shouldn't show us techniques exclusive to your village, if you know some of them. The big man had started talking. His voice came out a bit muffled, obviously. But it was clear and strong. All that we will do here is train about how to better keep under control our guests and how to better use their powers. We won't ask you anything that you will not want to let us know. We'll be fine with a name and the number of your tails. That out of the way, we can start introducing each other. The old man picked something out of his right pocket. It was a metal plaque from a forehead protector, Naruto recognized. My name is Rashi. I am a ninja from Iowa. I host the 4 tails. Han. The same. Only that my demon has 5 tails. Han used one of his gloved hands to point at his own metallic forehead protector. He then used his eyes to look around the younger ones around him. Who goes next? Me. It seemed that Naruto had quickly gotten over his embarrassed state and was now just right out excited by the thing. He flashed them one of his better grins. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I'm from Konoha and I have the Kyuubi. You're killing my buzz. Your demon is nuts. At that comment, everyone turned to the source. The dark-skinned boy. Holding his right hand out with index and pinky fingers stretched. Naruto was the one to comment everyone's thoughts, more or less. Wah? Destroyed a whole village not because of pillage. It was good that it was summer, so that Naruto's and the green-haired girl's dumbfounded stares could be strengthened by the sound of crickets. Noticing the attention, the dark-skinned boy continued. Impressed with my rhyming skills, are you? I'm the killer bee. 8 are my tails, from Kumo I hail. The real name's Kurabi, and he's the younger brother of the Reikage. Said the older girl, sighing. I'm from Kumo as well. My name is Yujito. And I house the 2-tailed beast. The giant hand nodded in acknowledgement and then turned to the two boys that he knew were from Kiri. The two boys were staring at them both, the one with pink eyes a bit more absent-minded or better, he seemed unfocused, even if his gaze was fixed on them. The older one decided to talk first. We both are from Kiri. My name is Utakata. I have the six-tailed beast. He then put a hand on top of the youngest person of their group. His name is Yugura. He houses the three-tailed beast. You're orphans, aren't you? The two Kiri members nodded and Rashi sighed in understanding before turning towards the boy with the red hair and the teddy bear. Feeling everyone's attention on him he smiled nervously. I'm Gara. Sabaku no Gara. I'm the Kazukiya's son. I have the Ichibi. And least, but not last Rashi turned to the last remaining member of their little ragtag group. The young girl who a few moments before had started reading again the little book she had put away. Suddenly feeling silence around her, she lifted her gaze from the pages. Ah. Sorry. I wanted to know how it continued she said, laughing while rubbing the back of her head, embarrassed. She closed the book and put it back in some kind of weapon pouch. She clapped her hands and bowed. My name is Fu. I host the seven-tailed beast. I come from Tokigaku. It's nice to meet you all. Good. Try to learn all the names in these 10 days. After all, some of you will stay here for 6 years. Rashi said, but his words were met with confusion. He slightly patted his own head. Right. I forgot to say. This camp is for non-genins only. So, that means that you will our guest this year only, Karabi. Buzz killer. Filthy filler. Nude of Ben Stiller. Karabi mouthed the things that, in his mind, should have been insults. But they really didn't have that great of an effect. Mostly because most of them didn't know what a Buzz, a filler and Ben Stiller were. Rashi just shrugged them off. Now, we'll give you 2 hours to get acquainted with the place. After that, lunch and then we'll talk about our training sessions that we will do all together. But before that you've been split up into little groups for the barracks. Rashi pulled out a piece of paper where he had written everything only to find out that it was an old grocery list. He found the right paper already in front of his face. He coughed a little embarrassed. Thank you. So first barrack. 9, 1 and 3. Crickets and little stairs. He sighed. It refers to the number of your tails. We just knew your ages and gender, you know. Ah. Then, you two are with me. Naruto grinned, suddenly hyper at having 2 roommates. Gara smiled weakly, while the younger boy just stared immobile. But suddenly, he turned his head to Utakata, who nodded to him. He turned his head back around and began to walk to the barrack, surprising Naruto a little. Hey. Wait. Second barrack. The 2 lovely ladies, what's so damn interesting in that book? Fu rubbed the back of her head sheepishly. She got caught again. She then turned to Yujito and extended her hand for her to shake, only to find that the Kumo student was already on her way to their barrack. And lastly, the crazy one and the almost silent one. Yo. Your acquaintance is welcome to me. Shack together we will be. Karabi needed to drop that annoying thing. Or at least, he should maybe just save it up for battles. It was a fine damn way to annoy enemies, but in social relationships Utakata didn't seem fazed at all, though. He just bowed politely in acknowledgement. When all the younger ones were gone from sight and earshot, the 2 Jinchuuriki from Iwa began to talk again. So? What do you think of them? Asked Han. It was a custom of him to always ask for a more experienced one's opinion first, in case he could have it. Rashi med before answering. Well, they all are just kids, but all seem to have at least a minimum of practice with handling their demon except for the one from Konoha. Han moved his gaze to the barracks where the 3 youngest ones were having troubles with turning a handle or better, Naruto was, till he fell on his butt. Yugura just opened for him right after. And I don't think he has ever even been told anything about ninja arts. HMPH. Seems like it, but Tsuchikage-sama was right about that other thing. Rashi nodded in agreement with Han. Yes. But even if it is true, I don't think he himself knows about it. Otherwise, give his personality, he would have boosted about it. What do you think about the other children's attitudes? Han crossed his arms in front of his chest yet again, his gaze still locked on the door of Naruto's barrack. The 2 from Kiri are very difficult to read. What you'd expect from ninjas from Kiri even if they're just kids. It will take some time. The 2 from Kumo Han sighed at that. They're both quite experienced in the use of their demonic chakra, and even if he doesn't look like it, the Raikage's brother has some degree of skill in a certain area. I don't know exactly which one. The Kazukiya's son Han stopped when he managed to get a glimpse of the boy he was talking about closing the door of the barrack. He seems very vulnerable and sensible. Even more than a normal children of that age. And finally, the girl from Tokigaku, she seems pretty normal, but she could just be faking it really good if that's the case. Also, I'm curious about her obsession about that book. Arashi picked out from one of his pouches some tobacco and a little piece of fabric papyrus, maybe. He just put the tobacco into the rectangular slit and rolled it into a perfect cylinder. He then put it to his mouth. In a few seconds, smoke started to leak out of his closed mouth. He took the handmade cigar out of his mouth and blew out smoke. Makes you wonder what book is. She put another cover on it. Breakline. So you're from I know you're from another villages, but I don't know which ones we let slide. Naruto's grammatical error and focus on the fact that he talking with Gaara and Yagura, asking them about their homes. Yagura was watching something out of the window near his bed, while Gaara was sitting in front of Naruto on his own, still clutching his teddy. He decided to speak first, though. I'm from Sunagakure village hidden in the sand. The redhead raised his head and allowed himself to smile a little at Naruto, still nervous. Naruto's mouth opened in "Oh children. Sand, wow. What's your village like? Is it full of sand? The only sand I've ever seen is the one in the playground." Gaara seemed a bit fazed by Naruto's cheerfulness, but he quickly composed himself. The village stands in the middle of a huge hollow mountain in the middle of the desert to shield us from the sandstorms. Gaara noticed that Naruto's eyes squinted at the word hollow. The redhead chuckled a bit at that. Hollow means that there's a huge hole in it. The mountain is basically a big circular wall. Ah, understood. Wow, sounds cool. What about you? Naruto turned his head to Yagura, who didn't look like he was going to move away from the window anytime soon. Kiri. Hit and missed. He simply replied. Naruto frowned. That's all. Yagura didn't reply, and Naruto's forehead twitched. Was he deliberately ignoring him or what? He hopped on his bed and crawled to him to the window. Alright. Just what the hell are you staring at? Yagura didn't reply or even move a single inch. He just kept on staring out of the window. Naruto puffed out his cheeks and then followed the boy's gaze, finding out that he was staring at a flower, again. There was a single big yellow flower just out of the window, behind the berg. He was staring at it with such intensity. The flower? Naruto said, calming down a little. Mostly because he didn't understand the reason of such interest. He turned to Yagura to see him nod slightly. And why are you staring at it so much? It's growing. Naruto wasn't exactly a genius, but he at least knew that plants took a while to grow. So, he labeled the small silver-haired child as totally nuts. He turned to Gaara again. Since he's kinda nuts, wanna go play outside for a while? Gaara suddenly raised his head in a flash. He wanted to play with him. Really? But his father had said. Naruto noticed his really surprised stare. What's wrong? You want to play with me? Naruto nodded, not understanding the sense of that question. But my father said that here it would be the same as back home. Gaara lowered his head again, feeling uneasy, while remembering what always happened into the village. Naruto blinked at that and then came something to his mind. They were all like him, in that place, and maybe, because of that, they had gone through the same things as him. They call you with harsh words, look at you with cold eyes and shun you. Gaara slowly raised his head and looked at Naruto. Hearing those words he nodded. But it's not only that, I mean, they fear me too, since I hurt them sometimes. Naruto blinked at that. He hurt them? Gaara began to tremble a little. When I'm upset, I can't control my powers, and I end up hurting other people. Well, then it's their fare for upsetting you, right? Naruto said. At that, Gaara's eyes widened and looked up at Naruto again. I mean, they knew that it happens, so, if they keep on upsetting you, they're idiots. Gaara took in Naruto's words, and then thought about it. Yes, it was true. What he did was unintentional, but he knew that it was caused by how people treated him. So, why did they still upset him so much if they knew he would freak out? That sounded stupid, yes. Yeah. So, don't worry. Now that I know that you can hurt him, I'm so not going to upset you. Naruto grinned and offered him his left hand. Gaara looked up at him and smiled, taking it, blushing a little. Well, I don't think I could, right now, though. Naruto blinked at that. I mean, my powers use sand, but there's no sand here, so, I can't use them. Even better. Let's go out and play. Yes, even better, but for who? Breakline. Vegito had nothing to do at the moment. Most of the time in her village she trained. She knew that many villagers feared her, but she had learned years before to simply ignore them. She focused on what she was supposed to do. Becoming one of the strongest ninjas in the village, just training all the time, so he didn't really had a hobby or anything like that. They had given them some time before lunch to get acquainted with the place, they said. But the problem was that she didn't know how to invest it, since she had already explored the whole settlement right after she had arrived. So the blonde's eyes fell upon her roommate, who had done nothing but read that book she seemed so engrossed with. She decided that she might as well make a little small talk. What's that book about? Fu blinked and turned around, surprised that something had distracted her from her book. She turned around to face Vegito, still not completely sure that she had really interrupted her. She found the blonde staring at her, waiting for a response. She blushed and laughed a little. Sorry, I tend to get too absorbed into reading. I figured as much. Indeed. Yujito had noticed that the orange-eyed girl had showed a high level of focus while reading that book. She would never admit it, but she seemed to be able to focus even better than she could. So? Ah, right. Fu closed the book carefully after putting something into it to keep track of her progression and then showed it to Yujito. The book had another cover over the original one, a hard orange one. She couldn't see the title. It's called The Legend of the Gutsy Ninja. It's my favorite book. The title is kind of lame. Yujito didn't voice her thoughts since she reasoned that insulting something she liked so much wasn't exactly a good idea. What does it talk about? It's about a gutsy ninja. Yujito's sweat dropped. She had guessed that much. I mean, it's about the story of a strong ninja that strives against many difficulties for the sake of those he loves and to get rid of a malevolent curse cast upon him, never giving up. It sounds nice. Fu seemed to be beaming. Unknown to Yujito, she had never had anyone to talk with about her favorite book. Want to read it? She exclaimed before turning around and diving into her backpack. Yujito waved her hand in front of her. Don't worry. I wouldn't want to steal your source of. Nah. It's cool. I have 2 copies. Fu basically shoved into Yujito's face another copy of the book. Same hardcover, same weight, same number of pages. The Kumo Jinchuuriki slowly took a hold of it. Why do you carry 2 copies around? Just to be on the safe side. Fu replied while smiling widely. And Yujito had the feeling she had just put herself into something weird. Break line. Yo. So, what's it like in your country? You bite the dust much? Utakata wasn't as silent as Ugura, mostly because he did most of the talk for the both of them, but at the moment he was at a real loss of words. Because he just couldn't understand what Kurabi had just said him. Could you please talk normally, since I can't understand anything of what you're saying? He calmly said, with Kurabi stopping his body motions, leaving his mouth wide open in particular, since he was about to go through another round of rhyming. He thought about it for a few seconds, it seemed, before finally closing his mouth. I guess my awesome art is not appreciated by everyone in the world, Kurabi said, crossing his arms in front of his chest. Utakata sighed. Or better, there are times in which you can talk like that and times when you shouldn't. The boy from Kiri said, earning a snort from Kurabi. You talk just like my big brother. How old are you? 9 years old. Kurabi got in a sitting position on his bed. And you already talk like an adult? Man, that's freaky. Were you raised like that or what? The Kumo Jinchuuriki asked. Utakata seemed to think about the reply for a little while before answering. Something like that. My village isn't known for its liberality, after all. Kurabi met at that. He knew the infamous nickname of the Hidden Mist, Bloody Mist. He could just imagine how worthy of that name the place was. Kumo was no joke when it came to training ninjas, but from what he heard about Kiri, most of the ninjas in that place were downright psychotic. While he thought about it, he saw the black-haired boy pick something from his backpack. It looked like it was a pipe. What's that thing you got there? Asked Kurabi, obviously curious. Utakata didn't reply. He just brought the tip of the long thing to his mouth and started puffing into it only for bubbles to come out of it. Soap. Exactly what are you doing? Don't worry, I can talk just fine while doing this. It's an exercise I do daily. Kurabi blinked at that. An exercise? What kind of exercise it was to make soap bubbles with wait a minute. He could feel some chakra coming from the little things that were floating into the air in front of him. And not just any kind of chakra. It was those that have to do with the powers of your guest. Yes. The 6 tails. Kurabi nodded and then grinned, intrigued. Hey, I kinda want to fight you. The black-skinned Jinchuuriki said before laying back on his bed and picking out of his pocket a pen and his little handbook. Another rhyme had just surfaced in his mind. Break line. After the time of getting acquainted with the territory using a metaphor more suited for dogs than human beings, it was time for lunch, and much to the Jinchuuriki's surprise, they had discovered that their lunch had been left in the middle of the courtyard, along with one big-ass table. Naruto had seen some tables like those ones in picnic areas. Table and bench fused together. How cool was that? He had even been delighted when he found that half of his lunch was made out of bowls of ramen. His cry of the name of his favorite food had actually brought out of hiding the 2 Anbu from Kiri, just to discover that the supposed enemy with the food's codename was, in fact, food. And even the usually silent Han had to stay agape at the amount of food the boy had managed to put in his stomach. Jinchuuriki had higher metabolism than normal people and needed to eat more, yes, but he was ridiculous. I'm stuffed. He exclaimed, patting his stomach. And the thing was probably a bottomless pit or something, looking at how it wasn't even swelled. The others had already finished their smaller meal or were about to finish it, and that set all on its eating speed as well. I'm glad to know it. Rashi scratched the top of his head while setting aside his chopsticks. Since they were all together in one place and at ease, he thought they could start with the first lesson. He had already thought of a metaphor too. He breathed in and out deeply. Now I suppose it's time me and Han hold our end of the deal. That caught the attention of everyone sitting at the table, while Fu finished her food for last, as she was doing something else while eating. Guess what? But before that, we'll ask you a few questions. First question, how many years have you been aware of your situation? Han asked, and he noticed the subtle shudder coming from Naruto. He hid it well. But not well enough. In order of tales. I was 2 years old, my uncle told me. Gaara still remembered it as clear as day. They had decided that it would be Ashimaru to tell him because he had also been the one appointed to take care of him and as such, the person closer to him. 2 years old as well. The same goes for Kurabi. Explained Yujito, cutting in for his fellow companion from Kumo, fearful that he would use rap again. Iguro was silent. It seemed that when they were together, Utakata took upon himself the task of talking for the both of them. We both were told as soon as we were able to understand what it meant. A little evasive as it didn't really reveal what they had asked, but it was enough for Rashi. That meant a very young age. He turned to Fu, who for once wasn't reading even if the book was still open on the table. I'm 4 years old. She said, a finger to her lips in sign of thought, like she wasn't sure she was telling the right age. Rashi just nodded. The only one left was Naruto. He was a little nervous, it seemed. He took a few seconds before answering truthfully. They told me 2 weeks ago. Rashi blinked at that, for the first time since the young ones knew him showing surprise at something second, but the first was about the blonde's eating habits. So, it didn't really count. He relaxed and sighed. The Saratobi in my memories wasn't this stupid alright. Judging from the feeling of your chakra and from what you've told me, I can understand who has already been trained in complying with their guests and who hasn't. But believe me, he aspired some smoke from the handmade cigar he had just made before puffing it out in little clouds of smoke in various shapes. You will never get better teachers than me and Han about that. Your village's teachers have just stories, theories and suppositions to go by. We both have years of experience. The first thing that you must understand is that there isn't a common way of dealing with each and every demon the same way. Han continued the speech of his senpai in this: the Biju are like people. As in, they each have a different personality and things they like and dislike. And another important thing, maybe the most important, is that a Biju's power isn't supreme. As in, there are opponents who are able to go toe-to-toe against us, even without possessing the power of a tailed beast. Rashi took a few more puff of smoke. So, you will basically ask us, what's the use of being a Jinchuuriki? What good does the Biju's power do us? The thing that is common to every Biju is that they are basically chakra batteries. The more the tails, the more the chakra they give out. That got Yujito's interest. Wait a minute. So that means that the Niobe is like second to last in regards of chakra? She asked. Rashi nodded. Yes. But, as Han was saying, that's just one aspect. In the ninja world, it's not always the one with the most chakra who comes out as the winner of a fight. Rashi said, suddenly making the cigar rotate on the tip of his right index finger with ease, like it was a kunai. The Biju will give you chakra and certain abilities, but it will still be you the ones who will have to put it to use. Even the sharpest blade is useless in the hands of a fool. Certain abilities? Like. The part about getting certain abilities from the Biju had gotten Naruto's attention. But question. Well, for example, my Biju gave me, we could call it a unique Kekkei Genkai of the elemental kind. The crickets around Naruto were being asked for more. Rashi sweat dropped. Right. You haven't even started the academy. Kekkei Genkais are like special ninja powers that can't be learned, right? Fu said, raising her hand. Han nodded. Exactly. They are not techniques per se, since they can't be thought. They are something that comes with blood. And not always. Following us so far? Naruto nodded. Super cool power that you had to be born with. Okay. Now, the elemental ninjutsu is basically split into 5 elements. Fire, water, wind, earth, thunder. There are certain bloodlines that make the user able to mix 2 of these elements to create a completely new one. That's the kind of power I got from my Biju. Finished Rashi, earning a O of admiration and interest from Naruto. I don't know about the other Biju, sadly. And finally, the last thing, there are 2 ways of using the Biju's chakra. 2 ways? Han kneaded again, crossing his arms over his chest yet again. It was a habit which he obeyed to very often, it seemed. The first is by drawing upon it as you would do with your own chakra and use it for your techniques or to enhance your body functions and structure. You should note that the strengthening effect of the Biju chakra is superior to that of normal chakra. He said, then looked at Rashi, asking him to continue. Then, the second way is to basically become a miniature version of your beast. The young ones all blinked at that. He had seen that coming, since they had been probably trained just in the first way, to that moment. Basically, instead of drawing and using their chakra in a normal way, you basically let it invade your body, which becomes even stronger, and usually a cloak of chakra envelopes your entire self, in the shape of the Biju. You all start at one tail, and the more tails of power you add the more powerful you become. Wow. Cool. Exclaimed Naruto, thinking about how cool it would be to suddenly turn into a miniature Kyuubi. Thinking about it again. But there are risks with this method. Otherwise me and Han would always use it. Rashi finished burning away his cigar, while Han took word again. The demonic chakra is different from ours. Our body can only take so much before it becomes harmful. That made a couple of the children gulp. The most a person can take is 3 tails worth of power. That means that Yugura, Gaara and Yujito aren't ever going to be faced with that kind of predicament. For all the others from the 4th tail onward, you start tapping in the beast's real power. But at a price, since it starts damaging your body. Exactly. My suggestion is, in case you're facing a strong enemy and you need to power up, you can go with tries till the 3rd tail. If you see that it's not enough, don't go through each of the other ones. Rashi scratched the tip of his nose instinctively. Go all out immediately, the highest level of power, to make the battle end earlier and minimize the damage. And finally there's the last risk. Naruto gulped. It still wasn't over. You can bet that some of the Biju are demons in the real sense of the term. Like mine. These ones will always try to take over your conscious self and substitute it with their own. And the more you tap into their power, the more you will lose yourself. There could the chance you can never go back in control ever again. People able to suppress a Biju's power are rare. Really rare. That's enough for today. Take your time to think about what you've learned today. Rashi said, getting up from his seat. Starting from tomorrow we will start the real lessons. Jai-chan, a question. Rashi stopped walking away because of the nickname more than anything. He turned to face Naruto and nodded to him to signal to him to talk. There's something I didn't understand. What is chakra? 5 faces met the ground with such force that the ground shook and trembled, making the Anbu appear again. Rashi rubbed his sore nose while thinking that the boy was probably the first Jinchuuriki in history who had not been trained in ninja art since young days. But after all, that was the first time someone ever managed to seal the Kyuubi. Breakline. As we foresaw, then. The 2 Anbu from Suna were having a debrief with another shinobi from their same village who had joined them unofficially. As much as the others knew, he wasn't there. They had been observing the activities during the first day of the camp. Yes. The Shukaku's protection is less effective here, if not absent. One of the Anbu said, then letting the other one continue. The boy still has no full control over his powers. In a place without sand like this it's doubtful he will put up much resistance. Their secret colleague nodded, acknowledging truth in their words. Still there's still the problem of the other Anbu and the camp leaders, he said, thinking that indeed there were still 4 ninjas plus 2 Jinchuuriki. It was doubtful that the ones from Kiri would do anything if they didn't target one of their own weapons. The 2 containers from Iwa had the responsibility of their younger counterparts, it was certain that they would jump in at any sign of danger. And the ninjas from Leaf seemed to take this alliance facade seriously. They would help as well. We need a distraction. What about a summoning? A relatively strong one would force at least the Anbu to get away. That would leave the 2 Jinchuuriki, and they're the biggest problem. The unknown ninja rubbed his chin in thought and then snapped his fingers. 1 summoning isn't enough. You mean we should make 1 summoning? The man nodded in reply. Yes. At least 4. In different directions, so that they are forced to split up and leave the camp to intercept them. They will not risk to bring the fight near the camp. But to summon 4 beasts strong enough to keep occupied 2 Anbu or one of those 2 experienced Jinchuuriki long enough, it will take almost all of our chakra. It's alright. After all, I was supposed to do the job alone. After all, it would raise suspicions if you weren't there fighting the summonings as well. You should maybe go 1 each with the 2 Jinchuuriki to hinder them, and it's not like I would need any help to take care of the child. The man brought a hand down to his feet, grasping the soft, wet humus under his feet. Sabaku no Gaara. His name says all. As long as he's surrounded by sand he's protected. But without sand he crushed a piece of humus in his hands, sending drops of it flying everywhere. He's nothing dangerous. The 2 other ninjas looked at each other before deciding that the plan was sound. When do we act? At night, of course. I think on the 7th day after all these days of tranquility, they will be calmer and more relaxed, they will be more likely to jump into the trap. We will use these days to slowly prepare the summonings. Make sure to do so on your guard strolls. Without being seen. Breakline. Good morning. Slept well, children. As a reply, all he got was a series of yawn and sighs. After all, children weren't supposed to wake up at 6 a.m. The tiredness from being woken up at that hour didn't spare anyone. I'll take that as a yes, so, before having breakfast, we'll do a little stroll in the surrounding forest. Let's say an hour or so. Naruto groaned at Rashi's words. A stroll. Oh, come on, why? He said, yawns threatening to break his sentence every 2 syllables, more or less. Rashi chuckled. Remember what I said yesterday. Your guests will give you power and abilities, but it will up to you how to use them. That means that you still will have to train your own body and chakra. He said, walking in front of the children slowly, eyeing them one by one. In the future you will discover your own attitudes and skills, some of you have already discovered them. Saying this, he looked at Karabi, Yujito and Utakata. But staying fit is required of a human being, not only of a ninja. The daily morning run will do good to your resistance and heart and lung capacity. So, get moving, boys. Follow me. Rashi started moving towards the wooden gate of the palisade surrounding their camp. Han was already outside. He would watch on their stroll along with the various Anbu. They had contacted them and agreed to help with their training. They had been notified of the track they would follow, so to better guard it. The young ones followed Rashi's pace. It was a steady one, but not tiring at all. They could follow it with relative ease. Of course, the one with the most problems in following it were the younger ones. From Fujiwara through Naruto and Gaara. But even them were keeping up. Alright. We'll change our pace. He said after 5 minutes that they were marching through the forest. They had arrived in front of a rather large clearing. No, it was more like a road made in the forest. With a good eye, one could easily notice that it had been created just recently. I'll accelerate a bit, and also suddenly Rashi sped up and started walking at zigzag on the road, passing behind the trees. Follow me. Zigzag, zigzag. Eh? Naruto was the only one to voice his surprise, but he hurried to follow the rest of the group. Zigzag, zigzag. Rashi kept on saying that while running around, chanting it like it was a magical spell. Yujito was blushing. She felt a bit ridiculous. After 20 minutes of that, everyone in the group had at least deepened their breath. In the end they arrived upon a smaller, round clearing. In the middle of it, 7 different stones were sitting, some bigger than the others. Now, for the second part of our stroll, pick up these stones. The group was surprised again. Rashi pointed at them with one of his hands. There's one for each of you. I wrote your name on it. Come on. What's the sense of this? Commented Yujito again, picking the one with her name on it. It was quite heavy, but not as much as that she couldn't hold it in her hands. The others felt the same while raising their own ones. The bigger one got picked up by Karabi, the smaller one by Yugura, of course. Now, you have to go back to the camp while carrying those stones but moving like this. Rashi joined his legs and feet and crouched, crossing his arms behind his back. Hop. Hop. Many jaws suddenly felt gravity calling to them. Rashi had started hopping forward, going back in the direction they had come from. Stopping and hopping on its place, he turned to them again. Come on. If you don't go all the way back like this, you get no breakfast. And we will not sit down and eat till everyone is back at the camp. Guess who? Break line. Naruto had believed that the old man was out of his mind because it sounded ridiculous, but now he was certain that he was out of his mind because he felt like his arms were about to come off. Hopping while carrying around that stone in his hands was downright a torture. If coming from the camp while doing zigzag through the trees had fatigued them and took around 30 minutes, he was fairly sure that they had been at that for almost an hour. The first to distance himself from the group was Karabi, being the oldest and physically strongest one of the group. He was then followed by Utakata and then Yujito, who despite not having the same muscular tone of the first two, was still older than them. They finally could see the gate and the only ones left were him and Gaara, who were hopping side by side. Fu was in front of them and Yugura behind. And come on, Naruto grunted, focusing on the relatively small distance in front of them compared to what they had done and trying to ignore the ache in his muscles. That man is a sapist or something. NNNGH Fu really felt the need to drop unconscious right there, but every time she felt like stopping, her favorite book came to her mind. The gutsy ninja would not give up, so she would neither. And the sight of the gates of 50 meters in front of her gave her the spurt she needed. She hurried up her hopping movement and in another few seconds, she was behind the gates, inside the camp. She finally could let the stone fall to the ground and fall beside it, her whole body finally free to ache. And FanFiction done. Well done, Fu. Good job. Now lay down there for as long as you like. Rashi said, eyeing the very tired figure of the girl and the still recovering figures of Yujito and Utakata. Karabi had returned to a normal heartbeat rate and breathing speed few minutes after stopping. As I figured, he has the most resistance out of them. Now, 3 more to go. He turned in the direction of the 3 remaining boys. And I'm hungry and tired. Naruto gritted his teeth, hearing Gaara's words. He shared his thoughts, but he was not going to show it. Don't worry. We're almost done. Focus on jumping. Suddenly, a rather loud thud coming from behind them got the attention of the 2 Jinchuuriki. They stopped and turned around to find a heavily sweating and panting Yugura a few meters behind them, collapsed on the ground, over his stone. Hey, you okay? Rashi eyed the scene with calmness. I foresaw that it could happen. After all, he's only 4-0, well. Yugura, you can Naruto, what are you doing? You heard him. If we don't all go back, we can't eat breakfast. Naruto's sudden action got the attention of everyone in line of sight, including the still recovering Jinchuuriki behind the gates. The blonde had went back to Yugura and put his stone to the ground. Then, he picked up the younger child and put him on his back, making him join his hands around his neck and locking the silver-haired child's legs around his body with his own arms. Then, he kneeled down and tried to lift both of their rocks. Emphasis on tried. He was struggling to get them up. NNNGH, hold tight. Yugura was still panting heavily, but he had at least managed to understand what was happening, observing Naruto's twitching arms. Rashi was the most shocked of everyone there. It had really surprised him, the boy's action. But most of all, Naruto, you know that this is against the rules. Shut up. He's exhausted, old man. He struggled and the rocks started to come off from the ground. I'll just hop there with him on my shoulders, he basically screamed while he finally managed to raise the 2 rocks. So he will hop too. Rashi was amazed by the feat, probably because it was the result of sheer willpower. Physically, he knew that the boy shouldn't have ever been able to do something like that. And the livid color of his arms told him he was right. Run here. Naruto said, not really listening to the man because of the amount of pain he was currently feeling in his arms. Run all the way here. And hurry. You just got 1 try. Otherwise, you'll really have to hop till here. Naruto stared at Rashi for a few seconds and then the wincing pain from his arms brought him back to the world of living. With a shout, he started running forward, trying to cover all the 50 meters left in 1 try. Instinctively, the other Jinchuurikis behind the gates moved away because they could see that he was already falling forward. He began to fall down right in front of the goal. He fell, but he managed to fall inside the camp. The very instant he crossed the line of the gates, he let the rocks fall down, cue to him tripping and flying forward, basically, landing harshly on his face. Everyone stared, surprised by the feat that Naruto had just accomplished, even if they could feel his really heavy pants. But Rashi was even more surprised than anyone around. Han shared his thoughts from the trees. That boy, just what level of stamina does he possess? Was the shared thought. Rashi's training was hard enough, but what he had just done was supposed to have spent him, he should have been wheezing, gasping for air, but he was just really fatigued. Rashi had the suspect that the reason Naruto couldn't get up from his face down position wasn't because of the lack of energy, but because of the pain in his muscles. Hey. Are you okay? Fu approached Naruto and gently shook him. Naruto panted a little more. I'm okay, I just hurt a lot in my arms and legs, he said, while Utakata helped Yugura get off his back, easing his breathing. Naruto managed to turn to his left side to look at the small child, who was staring at him. Thank you, Naruto-san. Utakata was visibly surprised by that. Yugura usually didn't bother to speak more than 1 or 2 words, and people's names he barely used them. Naruto just grinned. Hey, you're welcome. In the meanwhile, Kurabi was taking notes. Seemed like he had managed to get some ideas about new rhymes. Alright. Rashi then turned to the last remaining Jinchuuriki, who had stopped and had just been staring all the time. Gaara, start hopping, or we'll never get breakfast. Yes. That broke him out of his reverie. Rashi snorted while the red-haired child started hopping as fast as he could, while he thought of a little idea that had come to his mind by watching Naruto. Why not make them do all that while carrying something on their backs? He just had to find a suitable object. Break line. After Gaara had finished as well, they all sat down at the table in the middle of the camp, and like Rashi had foresaw, his one and Han's one were the only sets of jaws that ate normally. All the younger ones were eating like there was no tomorrow. Gaara and Naruto risked a couple of times of suffocating. Just to warn you, we will be doing the same thing every morning, but it will also be the only physical training you will be doing here. And after finishing eating breakfast, we'll go to the nearby stream to catch some fishes. You will always have to catch your own lunch as main dish. No one heard him, it seemed. Or they just registered the information while not bothering to reply. Their mouths had to be used for just one thing, in that moment. Rashi chuckled. Break line. Here's the stream, kids. Let's. Naruto and Kurabi were the first ones to throw themselves into the water, but they were followed later by the others, even if in a more slow manner. They were eager to get refreshed and clean from all the sweat they had built up in the morning, it seemed. Rashi smiled at their antics, but that had been his intention all along. They would relax a little before getting to some fishing. The last one to get into the water was Gaara. Seemed like he didn't like water much. But Naruto had pulled him by his left arm into the water, the thing quickly degenerated into a splash-off between the two. They were later joined by Kurabi and Yugura and Utakata too, it seemed. And the black-haired Jinchuuriki was damn good at it seemed. The girls had soaked for a bit and then got out of the water. Yujito had opted for some dozing off in the sun, emitting some noise of satisfaction once in a while. Fu joined her but not without her book. "Man, how the hell did you do it? I drank more water than what I ever spit." Utakata replied to Kurabi's question with a satisfied smile, leaving him in doubt. "Fishes?" suddenly said Yugura, pointing at a couple swimming around Naruto's feet. "Oh, right. We're supposed to catch them for lunch, right?" Naruto suddenly realized, remembering what had been told to them during their breakfast. He suddenly dove for them, but they quickly got out of the way. He pouted while Gaara shielded himself from more water. "Ack. They got away. You're never gonna catch them like that," suddenly said Utakata, shaking his head to get some water out of his hair. Everyone turned to him, listening. "In Kiri, we do it like this. Who has a good aim?" "Yujito's the name, aims her game," Kurabi commented while pointing at the girl, who emitted a loud growl. She just didn't like being used in one of the idiot's rhymes. She raised her head. "What do I have to do?" she asked. "Ask Rashi-sensei Kunes. We will scare these fishes so that they jump out of the water. You will have to hit them with your weapons and pin them to the tree on the other side of the river. Think you can do that?" Yujito listened and thought about it for a few seconds before nodding. She walked to the old Jinchuuriki who had already a weapon pouch out on his left hand. "How are we going to scare them?" asked Gaara, curious about the intimidation methods they were going to use. "First, we got to surround them. Then we dive underwater and follow them till we sort of trap them so that they can do nothing else but try to jump over us," he said, then he smiled. "That, or we can jump into the water altogether and raise a lot of water and the fishes along with it. What do you say?" Naruto and Kurabi grinned to each other. Yugura got out of the river. It was going to get messy. In the following hour, they managed to catch enough fish for their lunch. All the while Fu read while moving around on her towel to dodge falling water. Naruto dove under the enemy's attack and unsheathing his hidden weapon, something suddenly came to her mind. Naruto, I feel like I've heard the gutsy ninja's name somewhere else than in the book. Nah, I'm probably imagining it. Too bad for her short attention span. Break line. Alright, so, I think it's safe to finally begin the real lessons. Rashi was sitting cross-legged in front of the pond, the children facing him sitting in similar positions. He had made another one of those handmade cigars and was smoking it. Naruto had finally noticed that he didn't light it the right way, as in, he didn't use lighters or anything. He just put it in his mouth. As in how to draw upon your guest's chakra. "That's what I wanted to know," Naruto said. His outburst was met with just silence, since it was probably something everyone wanted to know about. "Now, first thing you must understand that it's not something easy or even willing the first time. That's because of the nature of the technique that put the demon into your body," Rashi said before pointing at his face and more specifically at the tattoo stretching from cheek to cheek over his nose. "You probably all have something like this somewhere on your body, right? Some kind of tattoo." "Yep. Right over here." Kurabi pointed at his face. Naruto blinked, not understanding what he was pointing at before focusing. He then noticed that there was indeed something on the black-haired kid's face. It was like a black drawing of a couple of horns, one above the other. He then looked at the others. They were all exposing something similar, it seemed. Yugura and Utakata turned around and raised their hair at the back of their necks. They had the same tattoo, it seemed. It was a little fractal circle, crossed inside by 3 other fractal lines that met each other at the center of the circle. Yujito exposed her right forearm. In her case, there was a small mark as well, like Kurabi's. This one, though, was in the shape of 3 vertical straight lines. It reminded Naruto of a scratch. Finally, Fu. In her case, she was sitting to Naruto's immediate right and she seemed to have some problems with her shirt. She was trying to raise it, but she seemed to not be able to raise it enough. She suddenly stopped and turned to him. Can you help me? It's on my back." "Ah, okay." Naruto turned and complied, raising her shirt till the drawing got shown. It was a series of squares, put one inside the other. The tattoo covered all the space between her 2 shoulder blades. "And what about you, Naruto?" The blonde blinked and turned around and then remembered of not having nothing of the sort anywhere on his body. I see. I've heard that the Yondaime was a seal master, so your seal probably only shows when you're using chakra." "And what about me?" Gaara said, breaking Naruto's thoughts about what a seal is before they even started. The boy seemed a little uneasy. I don't have a tattoo either." "That's because there's quite a difference between your situation and ours. Well, we have been subject to a technique of sealing, as in, it keeps our demons in check." Rashi took a deep breath of smoke. He did it to focus, most of the times. "You got subject to a technique of possession. You know that, right?" "Yes." Gaara slowly lowered his head and Rashi noticed the look of confusion on some of the young ones' faces. The technique of sealing basically puts the demons in a prison inside of a container. In case it's a living human, a Jinchuuriki, it means that it's up to that individual the choice of how much, when, and how use the demon's chakra to a certain extent. Han had suddenly appeared beside Rashi, landing beside him in a kneeling position. A technique of possession, instead it basically makes the demon ever present. The two struggle every hour of the day for control over the body of the Jinchuuriki. Yes, I keep on hearing a voice even now, Gaara said, clutching his teddy closer to himself. It says to do bad things again like I do unconsciously, it never lets me sleep peacefully. I knew that the Sand Village was desperate for increasing his military power, but I believed it would have developed better sealing technique over the years. Han said, shaking his head. Suna is not known for having a story of sealing techniques. They just don't care. Rashi said, his cigar finally ending. He put it out on the ground with one of his feet. Naruto didn't hear the last part because his gaze was fixed on Gaara because of his last words. Returning to the main part of the speech, those tattoos basically symbolize your situation, among other things. What kind of other things? Asked Fu, suddenly curious. Let's say that the demon's presence can influence your physique and your behavior, making them akin to their ones. They all have shapes of animals, after all. The most blatant example is Naruto, over here. Naruto blinked and pointed at himself with his right index finger. Rashi nodded. Those slashes on both your cheeks. Don't they remind you of a fox's whiskers? Naruto brought his hands to his face, touching his cheeks in thought. He always believed they were strange birthmarks, but… Or, Yujito. Your habit of dozing off in the sun very cat-like. The girl blushed and turned her head to the side, frowning a bit. Now, as I said, well there are few ways to use the chakra, there are just two ways in which to draw upon it. Willingly or going berserk. More confusion. The word was probably foreign to most of the young ones. The second one is most often the way in which you would have used it the first time. Basically, if you start experiencing strong emotions that put you in resonance with your demon, you go through the mini-beast transformation that progresses with time. Would have. This time it was the usually silent Yugura to ask that question. Rashi nodded. Yes, would have. Because what we will be doing during this camp is trying to get you to start with a willing use before the berserk use. How? Asked Yujito. Rashi smiled and let Han reply. We will make you visit your demons. Continue. Okay, Chapter 2. Bonds. Them meet our demons. Rashi nodded as a reply to Naruto's stuttering question. And then started to think about how to explain everything he needed to explain with words that the children could understand. Basically, there's a peculiarity with having a seal. You see, there are techniques that let the user peer into someone else's mind. He got up from his sitting position and patted away a bit of dust from his pants. Usually, they see it like a place. The aspect of the place depends from the person's personality and memories. They can peer around for those, but let's say that in your mind a seal is a private room for your demon. Oh, the blonde Jinchuuriki took everything in and more or less understood what he was said, apart what private meant. Now, you usually don't visualize your mind at will. And even Jinchuuriki just witness it when strong emotions bring them to align with their demon's personality. Only after they can learn to go there at will, but Rashi moved his gaze over the children, sparing a few seconds each while he kept on talking. Over the years, I've developed a technique to force this visit. I'm the only one able to use it. So, basically, the next week will be devoted to making you meet your demons. One Jinchuuriki per day. So, who wants to go first? Naruto swallowed. Meeting his demon at first he thought it sounded cool, but the Kyuubi was the demon who had almost destroyed Konoha, right? So he suddenly wasn't very eager to do it anymore. Surprisingly, the tiniest hand in the group was the one that went up in the air. Everyone turned to Yugura, who had just volunteered himself to be the first to be the subject of that day. Rashi nodded in acknowledgement. Good. Then, stand in front of me, your back facing my body. Close your eyes and stay still. Yugura nodded and did as told, getting up from his sitting position on the ground and standing in front of Rashi. Once the young boy stood perfectly still, the older Jinchuuriki went through a series of hand seals and then gently placed both of his hands on both of Yugura's temples. Break line. When Yugura reopened his eyes, he was still in the same position as before, but everything around him had changed. First of all, he was sure he was standing on solid ground in the middle of a palisaded encampment in the middle of a forest. Now he was standing on top of water when he didn't know how to do that yet in the middle of an enormous lake surrounded by mountains and luscious forests growing on the shores just behind the sand. Seems like you have a quite pretty mindscape, kid. Good for you. Yugura slowly turned his head around, finding the figure of Rashi standing behind him like it was before. The man walked beside him and kept on observing everything around. You wouldn't like to see just how fucked up certain mindscapes are. Like that of the latest Mizukage. Yugura listened to the Iwanin's words and then returned his attention to the lake. Or better, to the water's surface. It was moving and getting filled with big circular ripples. He then noticed that there was a big shadow becoming bigger and bigger by the second. Here it comes. Rashi commented, just as the shadow became more than a shadow and began gaining colors as the sandy surface from beneath its resting place, raising an enormous tidal wave that splashed both Rashi and Yagura heavily, but without wetting them, strangely. Yagura stared at the enormous eyes of the beast, and surprisingly, the demon was staring back at him with the exact same stare. It looked void of every emotion and intent, if not that of observing, waiting for something to happen or for the object of its interest to do something. Well, it looks like the rumors were true. You're in luck, kid. Yagura turned to Rashi with a questioning gaze. You see, Kiri isn't anything special when it comes to sealing techniques, and until a few decades ago, they were right out bad. But then an incident happened that forced them to study a little in that area. The little silver-haired kid kept on listening to the older Jinchuuriki. You see, a try on sealing the Sambi went to hell. Not only they couldn't manage to seal it, but the supposed host died and the beast went wild in the process. On top of that, it had been damaged, losing its human intelligence. Yagura suddenly turned his head again to the enormous turtle, while Rashi nodded in acknowledgement to his reasoning. You're very, very lucky, kid. Basically, you've gotten yourself an enormous, incredibly powerful pet. Breakline. And that went very well, I must say. In the real world, just a few seconds had passed between the time Rashi placed his hands on Yagura's temples and when he removed them again with a satisfied smile. Naruto blinked. Already over? He asked. As a response, Yagura hurried back to Rakuro's side while Rashi took out another bit of tobacco to make a cigar out of and started walk away. For today it's all. For the rest of the day, you're free to do everything you want. Just don't hurt yourself and don't get out of the encampment. The red-haired Jinchuuriki walked away before Naruto had a chance of asking him what he wanted to ask. As in. Alright. And exactly what are we supposed to do? He turned around to the others only to sweat drop as almost everyone had disappeared. He could still see the retreating form of the Kiri duo as he would later in the years call them. Right. Leave me alone. I'm still here. Naruto blinked when Gaara's weak voice suddenly called at him from the ground. The Wind Country citizen was still sitting on the ground. Just after calling to him he got back on his feet. The blonde rewarded him with one of his grins. Hey, thanks. But what are we supposed to do now? I have no idea. Naruto scratched the tip of his nose a bit then grinned. Hey. Maybe we could train a little. We're going to get into the academy soon, right? Gaara cringed at the word train. I still feel pain from this morning's thing, sorry. Ah, you mean the rock things. Now that I think about it, Naruto tentatively went to touch a part of his legs that still felt sore from that morning and howled out in pain right after. Oh. Me too. Gaara thought that this was a bit strange, though. He felt pain just by moving. Naruto felt pain only if he touched the sore spot already. Oh then, what are we supposed to do? I'm bored, Naruto pouted cutely. Have no fear, cause I'm here. Before his bones threatened to jump out of his body ripping through flesh and skin because of the sudden surprise caused from Kurabi's loud voice booming from behind him. Hey, are you crazy? Naruto was almost cyanotic, all air having left his lungs in a single instant. Are you bored or not? I'm here to revive Riot. Naruto had half an idea of pointing out to him that his talking in rhymes was starting to become annoying, but he seemed to have an idea to break the boredom. So he decided to shut up. You two young chicks are lucky, for I've decided to take you under my wing and teach you one of the finest arts in the world. Now that got both Naruto's and Gaara's attention. What did he want to teach them? I'm going to give you baptism in the fine art of rapping. He suddenly said, earning a simple reply from Naruto. Wah? Breakline. So how is Naruto doing? Sarutobi was debriefing a pair of Anbu who had just ended their turn on a particular assignment that he held particularly to heart, as in, the surveillance of Camp Jinchuuriki, as one of his younger employers would probably mock call it. He's doing well, Hokage-sama. The first Anbu replied, before submitting to the Hokage some pictures they had taken, showing the inside of Naruto's bunk and him engaging in bonding activities with his peers, alas, playing tag with Gaara. He's been put together with the son of the Kazekage and the youngest of the Jinchuuriki from Kiri. He seems to be getting along easily with everyone, but especially with the former, Hokage-sama. I understand. The Hokage picked up a picture where Naruto had been tackled to the ground by Gaara, losing that round of tag. But nonetheless he seemed to be enjoying himself a lot, judging from his smile. He raised his head again. What about the eldest Jinchuuriki? The Tsuchikage's agreement had made the Hokage very suspicious. Especially considering Naruto's and the woman's relationships with a certain person. They have not been trying anything, Hokage-sama. They've obviously been slightly interested in the boy, but they have not tried nor planned anything. They're pretty much holding their end of the deal, the other Anbu said. The Hokage thought about it for a while before nodding. I understand. Good work. Before turning in, contact your colleagues and ask them to still keep an eye open for them. The two Anbu nodded and then disappeared in small cloud of smokes, leaving the Hokage alone in his office again. Seems like I made the right choice, the Fire Shadow said, observing the various pictures of a smiling Naruto laid out on his table. He seemed to be really enjoying himself, maybe for the first time in his life. And yet I can't get rid of this feeling of uneasiness. Break line. Naruto had went through routine in those last few days, like everyone in their group. Morning, they would wake up early and go through the hellish training of rock carrying. And it seemed like the rocks got a little heavier each day. He didn't know how it was possible, but it seemed like that. After that, they would eat breakfast and then spend the morning by the river, playing and catching their lunch. In the afternoon, those few seconds of Biju meeting counseling and then, free day. The first day they had been initiated to rapping Naruto, and Gaara ran away after the first 10 minutes. He didn't know how to explain it, but the child was feeling stupider and stupider with each rhyme he created. He and Gaara had resolved to do something on their own. The Kazukiya's son had been under the care of personal teachers ever since he was a toddler, so their afternoons had mostly comprised of Gaara sharing a bit of his knowledge with Naruto. That's what they were doing at the moment. The Redeed had just finished explaining to the blonde the concept of logic. The ability to discern something from something else. I don't get it. Here's the answer of the Konoha Jinchuuriki. Gaara lowered his head, a bit embarrassed. Maybe I should make an example. Gaara said, and then began to think about how to explain it. He suddenly nodded to himself. Yes, like well, let's make that you have an aquarium. Alright. Naruto nodded and crossed his arms, his attention fully on Gaara. You have an aquarium because it reminds you of the sea that you like. You like the sea because you like the beach. And you like the beach because there are girls on it. So, you have the aquarium because you like girls. Naruto's mouth opened in awe of understanding. Now I get it. Not really, mostly because even Gaara's explanation was a bit flawed in general, but hey, they're kids. But to make matters worse, using logic, Naruto was already putting in relationship what he had just learned with other things he had heard older people say. Hey, dinner's ready. The two turned towards the door of their barrack, which had opened to reveal Rashi. Naruto suddenly had an insatiable urge to ask something. Hey, Jai-san. Do you have an aquarium? He asked. Rashi blinked, wondering what exactly possessed the young Jinchuuriki to ask that question. He shook his head. Naruto gasped. Then you're a homo. Gaara blushed, embarrassed like hell, while Rashi just stared at Naruto while his cigar threatened to fall from his mouth. He regained enough composure to close the door slowly behind him. Naruto turned to Gaara and then shrugged his shoulders. Whatever a homo is. I just know that it's someone who doesn't like girls. Gaara laughed a bit at Naruto's antics. Little did Gaara know that the explanation he had repeated hearing from his uncle was a joke on logic. But, hey. That was pretty neat as something to know. Who taught you that? My uncle, he has been the one taking care of me ever since I was born. Gaara replied, smiling a little. He's probably the only one who loves me. The only one? Naruto could see the sadness in Gaara as he nodded. He was about to ask about the rest of his family, but he decided against it. Going to dinner? Gaara nodded. In the meanwhile, Rashi had reached hand at the table outside. What the hell did you tell those kids? Break line. Hey Gaara. Yes. It was night time. They had finished eating dinner a long time ago and had retreated inside their barrack alongside Yagura, and they had gotten into their own bed a long time ago. But they couldn't sleep much. Because of something. It was the end of the 7th day. That day Gaara had met his demon. And Naruto was the only one left that had to do so. How was today? Naruto could almost feel Gaara tense up at just mentioning what had happened that afternoon. That made him tense up even more. Meeting your demon. It was scary. Gaara clutched onto his teddy a bit more tightly, remembering just what he'd seen. My mind was like a big desert, but still, it was fresh. I didn't feel cold at all, and there were a few clouds in the sky. It was kinda pretty but then he started trembling a little. Then, we arrived at a spot in the desert that was drenched with blood. The clouds turned red too, and the sand started to gather. Rashi-san said that we had to get out of there because the seal wouldn't protect us from my demon. Before we got out I saw his eyes. Alright. Sorry. Naruto was starting to feel miserable for asking if just remembering it caused that kind of reaction, but at the same time it made him feel even more nervous about his own situation. Was the Kyuubi going to be as scary as Gaara's demon? Damn. You know what? I wish I knew why. Being a Jinchuuriki sucks. It's because they want me to become a strong ninja. I don't know about you, though, Naruto. Gaara replied truthfully. Usually they make Jinchuuriki because Jinchuuriki almost always become strong ninjas, but it's not your case, right? Nope. Naruto frowned a little at that. If they trained him to be an awesome ninja would have made the thing of him being hated a bit better, at the very least. Little did they know that the exact word was weapon. Ninjas were weapons, but Jinchuuriki were even more weapon than that. Well. Let's just get some sleep. Good night, Gaara. Good night, Naruto. Gaara said, making himself more comfortable in his bed, snuggling slightly against his teddy. Good night. The third voice suddenly coming alive surprised both Gaara and Naruto. Yugura wasn't asleep yet, it seemed. That meant that he had listened to their conversation. Naruto shrugged it off after a few seconds, but he really would have liked to know Yugura's opinion about the matter. Break line. Is everything ready? Asked the man. The Suna Anbu nodded. Yes. We made sure that the release of chakra will be so huge that they will never be able to detect yours in any case. The man nodded, covering his face with the usual cloth. I will stay hidden till they get away from the encampment, though. While saying this, the other Suna Anbu arrived as well. Are you both ready? They both nodded. Then commence. The man disappeared in a cloud of smoke while the two Anbu went through the same series of hand seals and then silently whispered Kai. Break line. Rashi's eyes shot out in an instant the second he felt something become different. He sat on his bed and noticed Han was already awake as well. Han. I know. 4 of them. The enormous Jinchuuriki immediately went for his clothes and battle armor, while Rashi put on his sandals and immediately ran outside of the barrack, finding the various Anbu already in the middle of the encampment. What happened? He asked, eyeing the shapes of the various duos of special ninjas. 2 from Suna, 2 from Kiri, 2 from Konoha, 2 from Taki. 4 summons. High-level ones. Rashi frowned. That could be a real problem. Han had joined them outside of the barrack in a few seconds. Han and I will take 1 each. You other, split in 2 teams of 4. 4 stay here, 4 go after the 2 remaining summons. Before the Anbu had any chances to talk, the 2 containers had already disappeared, each one in the direction of one of the summonings. Their chakra flaring, so that the special ninjas could understand which ones to attack. The 2 ninjas of the leaf made a sign to the ones of the waterfall, who nodded in reply. The 4 of them disappeared in clouds of smoke, leaving the 2 of Kiri and the 2 of Suna, who looked at each other for a few seconds to be certain that the other ninjas had disappeared, till another person appeared in the middle of the clearing. You can go. The 2 Anbu from Kiri gave the man a warning glance, even if their masks covered their faces, and so, their eyes. Do not worry. Your Jinchuuriki will not be harmed. You better not. Or Suna will be in trouble. The 4 Anbu disappeared. They would make sure the other Jinchuuriki stayed asleep with a Jinjutsu and create battle damage around the perimeter of the encampment. He stayed still and silent for a couple minutes to be certain that no one was near his position anymore. The man sneered. Suna would be in trouble. For what? They would go and tell them that Suna had planned an attack on his own Jinchuuriki in such a delicate situation, planning an international incident. It would be so crazy that no one would believe it. It said much about the Kazakuja's current mental state. As for he. While he approached a barrack where his target was, he thought about the reasons that had made him accept that mission in the first place. His personal hate for the Jinchuuriki. He opened the door slowly and silently. Perfect. For once, the Jinchuuriki wasn't awake, nor was he trashing in his sleep. Everything in the room was perfectly silent. He picked out a kunai and approached the first bed, trying to find a mop of red hair. He blinked when he found none. Not a different color of hair, but no hair at all, not even sticking from under the covers. He grabbed the covers and pulled them off. Clothes. How? He hurried to the other 2 beds. Same story. More clothes in the place of who should be slipping inside them. The ninja silently cursed. How did they notice? He then began to search around the room and he noticed an open window. Break line. We shouldn't get so far. The more far away from that guy the better. Naruto said while carrying Yagura on his back. The youngest Jinchuuriki couldn't run very fast because of his age and as such, he had taken him upon himself of carrying him around. He didn't know exactly what had happened. The only thing he knew was that Yagura had awoken them and showed them that single ninja standing in the middle of the encampment, telling them that they were alone and that they had to run away. They had gotten out of the back window of the barrack and then got out of the encampment via some kind of hidden underground passageway that had brought them out in the forest. How had Yagura managed to find out was a mystery to him. Who do you think? Gaara asked, grasping tightly at his teddy. Naruto shook his head fiercely. I don't know who that guy could be or why he was coming to us. But it was nothing good, I tell you. Naruto had let himself gasp when he heard a loud shuffling noise coming from afar. The same noise they had made when they had opened hard the cover of the exit of the underground tunnel. He found it. What do we do? Gaara said, panicking a little. Naruto swallowed and Yagura was starting to get nervous as well. We have to hide. The Kiri Jinchuuriki said. Naruto thought about it for a few seconds and then nodded. Why yes. We have to hide. We can't outrun a ninja, right? The two immediately started searching for some place to hide. Gaara suddenly stopped Naruto by placing a hand on his shoulder, pointing at a rather large bush or rows. Are rows. But they hurt. That's why he will not think that 3 kids hid in there. Gaara replied. To Naruto made sense. He swallowed and approached the bush, moving away the bushes barehanded, wincing in pain while he opened it for Gaara and Yugura to enter before him. The Redeed then let the bush open for Naruto to enter behind them. Now, be silent and don't move. Breath normally. Naruto nodded and fell completely silent. Yugura hadn't been much of a talker to begin with. They swallowed and turned to the clearing. Naruto thought about complimenting Gaara on knowing how to hide well later. Now they had to be silent, especially when they saw the ninja appear in their field of vision. The 3 children's hearts skipped a bit. The ninja had his face almost completely covered, just his eyes poking out of that cloth he was wearing, and was looking around with a calm and slowness that seemed almost unreal, mechanical. But what really worried Naruto were the kunes that he was carrying around, not really carrying around, since they were floating directly in front and beside him, like invisible hands were holding them up. They flinched when he turned in their direction and started to walk towards them. The kids had to control themselves, for even breathing heavily could give them away, judging from how heavy the silence that reigned in that forest was. The ninja took step by step and then their heartbeats became faster and faster till he stopped. They sighed in relief but just briefly as a kunai went off their bush at high speed and implanted themselves on the ground just behind them. Naruto and Gaara covered their mouths to avoid letting out a single sound and it would have been easy, scared as they were. The ninja stared silently at the bush for a few seconds and then began to walk away in the opposite direction from their hiding place. Gaara, Naruto and Yugura stared at the direction for a few seconds, then for a couple minutes before they were certain that he was indeed one. They let out the breath they had been holding in. That was scary. Ah. Gaara screamed in fear and pain as a kunai suddenly planted itself into his right biceps, earning a horrified gasp from Naruto and Yugura. Gaara. Before they could react, an arm shot into the bush and grabbed the Redeed by his clothes. Gaara looked up and fried at the ninja who was now holding him above the ground and then saw his eyes. They were the same. The same lots of people used to look at him with back in his village. Hiding in uncomfortable places, holding your breath. You've been taught well. I should know I'm the one who taught you. The attacker moved his other hand strangely and all his other kunai suddenly floated straight above his head and then lowered themselves to point at Gaara, who was trembling in fear right now. Then he shook his head and closed his eyes. He was trying to focus. It's useless. There's no sand here for you to use, at least not on the ground. Gaara's eyes shot open again, tears gathering in his eyes. He was scared out of his mind. It's time to die. Ooh. Suddenly, something happened that startled the ninja. Naruto jumping out of the bush and grabbing onto his left leg, mainly. The ninja cursed under his breath before trying to shake him off. Seeing that it didn't work, he suddenly turned around and kicked the air. The strength was enough to make Naruto lose his grip on the leg and send him flying a few meters. Ah. The blonde ended up against the trunk of a nearby tree. A nuisance. Now it was the ninja's turn to scream. Mainly because he had forgotten about the 3rd bunkmate who had managed to get a hold of the kunai he had launched earlier and stab him in the right knee with it. The sudden shock made him lose the grip on Gaara, who fell to the ground and began to run away in Naruto's direction, with Yugura holding his teddy in tow. The ninja gritted his teeth and got the kunai out of his knee and started applying some chakra to heal the wound. Damn. I've been careless. He then turned around and saw his target and the child from Kiri helping Naruto back on his feet. The blonde recovered enough bearing to get back on the ground just as he healed enough of his wound for the injury to not impede his movement. It will still hurt like a bitch, though. Damn that kid from Kiri. He used his strange technique again and sent more kunai flying right in front of the trio, stopping their running and forcing them to change direction. He ran towards them. It's useless. Naruto was scared. Scared out of his mind. He had never found himself in such a situation. Someone wanted him dead. No, the man wanted one of his friends dead, but he was willing to hurt him too in the process. He was sweating and tears were gathering in his eyes, the pain from him hitting the tree still fresh. This is the end. The ninja sent another volley of kunai in their direction, and the 3 shared the same fear, and Gaara and Naruto let out a cry, only to be surprised when more kunai came out from their right to intercept the one being hurled at them. The most surprised one was the assassin. Wasn't his plan perfect? Wasn't he supposed to have taken care of every single possible threat? Who's there? Ulavicious fiend. Seems like assassination is this week's trend. The 3 youngsters immediately recognized the voice, and when the person came out of the bush their guess was confirmed. They still had to understand why he talked funny or why he kept sunglasses even when it was nighttime, but it was nice to have someone helping them. Sorry, but it's already old-fashioned. The man cursed. Those idiots had probably used too much of a weak Jinjutsu or had probably forgot that one of the Jinchuuriki was basically a genin. It wasn't impossible that he knew how to dispel them. Especially since it was the Raikage's younger brother. You. Call me Kurabi. It will be the last name you'll hear. The black-skinned youth said, dropping into a fighting stance then suddenly remembering something and crossing his arms over his chest. Or maybe not. What? Naruto was the source of this latest outburst, even if Gaara had had a big temptation of joining him. Was he going to save them or not? Kurabi turned to them with a frown on his face. Why should I help two defective students? He said. Naruto was about to yell what the hell are you talking about when he suddenly remembered that he and Gaara had ran away from the rap lessons. He swallowed and then suddenly prostrated himself at his feet. Please help us. I swear I will sit through the whole lesson next time. Please Kurabi-sama. He said, unsure himself of what he was saying. Kurabi gave a hum of thought and shifted his gaze to Gaara, who shivered and then mimicked Naruto, but just let out a please. The boy then moved to Yagura. The Kiri Jinchuuriki just stared back. What the hell do I have to do with this? Kurabi stared back fiercely. Yagura surrendered and bowed as well. The Kumo Jinchuuriki grinned and turned to the ninja again. Ah. I guess I really can't help it. You guys are all like help me. Naruto already regretted it a little, but then blinked when he saw Kurabi pick out a scroll out of his weapon pouch. The ninja was taking advantage of those seconds of pause to heal a little more the gash in his knee. The hit had damaged a ligament and the bones, but he kept his eyes on his target and the interferences. The genin had opened the scroll and threw it high in the air. A big cloud of smoke got out of it, along with 4 objects. Kurabi smoothly grabbed all 4 of them, 2 with his hands, 1 with his right leg, and the last with his mouth. Both the children and the ninja stared in surprise at the now armed Jinchuuriki. He had got out of the scroll 4 swords, all identical, with cutting edges on both sides. While Naruto had never seen anyone holding a sword, the ninja had never seen anyone holding 4 swords at the same time. I will beat you into the ground so hard that you'll forget you had teeth to begin with, idiot. Kurabi said. The sentence didn't make much sense to the ninja, and he also was asking himself how stupid he looked. How could someone move like that? Then, suddenly, Kurabi moved. The black-skinned boy used his free leg to jump forward and then used his other leg to rotate it and jumped further forward, surprising the ninja a great deal. What? The ninja grabbed a kunai out of air and blocked Kurabi's slash at his stomach. The kid used the momentum to flip himself up and used his leg too to jump high in the air and then began to rotate it while descending to the ground again. The assassin jumped back to dodge and while Kurabi got back in a standing position he threw his kunai at him. Kurabi rotated on himself and deflected them tsk. Not over yet. Indeed. Kurabi didn't stop rotating on himself after deflecting the kunai and jumped towards the assassin again, who grabbed 2 kunai out of the air and parried the first 2 blows, but more came. Kurabi kept on rotating, jumping, shifting his weight. His swords were coming from every possible angle. Awesome. Naruto and Gaara stared in awe as Kurabi kept on fighting his enemy using that strange style, acrobatic and basically unpredictable. They couldn't tell what Yagura was thinking, though, since his stoic face was still in place. What kind of fighting style is this? I've never seen anything like this. Nor he had heard about it. Little did he know that it was something that Kurabi had basically made up on his own. Most of what his older brother's subordinates taught bored him to death. Even Kenjutsu. He wanted something flashy, something unusual, something to go with his rap, so he then decided to try using more than 1 sword. He had managed to reach the amount of 4 just a couple of weeks before. I float like a butterfly. Suddenly, he managed to land a hit on the enemy's left biceps. Kurabi used the opening to come to a halt facing him and turn around the swords he was holding in his hands. And sting like a bee. Cause I'm the 8-tailed beast. NGHH. The black youth delivered a vicious blow in the shape of a cross on the assassin's chest, making him stumble to the ground and fall. The man rolled on the ground and got back on his feet pretty quickly, though. He glared at the genin from behind his cloth quite fiercely. You haven't got enough. I appreciate that though. I've been dying of using this in a real fight. It sends inspiration all through my body like an electrical current. Naruto's sweat dropped. The way he talked was still terrible and full of nonsense. He shook his head. At least, the way he fought was damn cool. And he looked really strong. They were safe, then. The ninja used an healing jutsu yet again, closing the wounds before he lost too much blood. He then gritted his teeth while he got back on his feet. That style is too unpredictable, and close-range fighting isn't my specialty in the first place, but to have to get serious I admitted. Your strong. Kurabi's smirk had short life, as the assassin's eyes narrowed. For a genin. The older shinobi got out a scroll of his own and opened it to its full length and handful of meters before throwing it high into the air and making hand seals. Who do you think I am? I'm a jounin. I wasn't fighting at full strength because this was supposed to be an assassination. I can feel a huge chakra. Karabi was on his guard. Not knowing what was about to come to him, he preferred to wait and observe. He couldn't rush in blindly and give the ninja a chance of counterattacking. His eyes widened. What is that? A ball of he paled. It wasn't a ball of iron, they were tens of kunai that had gotten out of the scroll and they were all suspended into the air. The ninja did one single hand seal. Ninpu. Kurinatetsu, mist of steel. Suddenly, the kunais all separated from each other, like each had suddenly gained their own mind, floating in the air, moving slowly forward before they shot forward in various directions. Karabi was sweating while the younger ones gasped. You're finished, kid. This is bad. Break line. This chakra far away from his position, Rashi had detected a new big source of chakra suddenly making itself known. While dodging another attack from the enormous insect-like summon that he had been fighting for a while now. His techniques had managed to damage him, but a full victory was still far. But he was worried. The chakra he felt didn't belong to any one of the four he had left behind at the encampment. And why was chakra flaring so far from it? Another blow. He dodged it by jumping back. I have to finish this right now. While still in midair, Rashi started to go through a long series of hand seal. Right after he landed, he slammed his hands on the ground. Yoten. Hibi Kaijin. Lava release. Giant fissure. Break line. Will you hurry and die? Han was getting really impatient, mostly because he could feel that something unexpected was going on near the encampment. And he didn't like it one bit. Unfortunately, he had chosen to fight the summon using the slow but certain way. As in, sure death, but it took a little while. The summon was trashing around and getting weaker and weaker, but it still was alive. He then felt Rashi's surge in chakra. Seems like he had made the same reasoning. Break line. Garabi hadn't had time to crack some new rap rhyme in those last few minutes. All the breath he had was to be used exclusively to protect himself at the moment. The guy was indeed a jounin, even if a low-level one. After he had used that technique, he had been in big trouble. Basically, the floating kunai thing he was doing before. He started doing it with almost 100 of them, only this time they were running wild and extremely fast, in a small area. He was still alive because he was used to unpredictability because of his fighting style, but he was bleeding from a lot of cuts. He couldn't keep on dodging forever. You can't keep on dodging forever. The ninja cursed internally. To think that he had had to use so much chakra and that technique to get that job done, he felt shame. A big deal of shame for having been pushed so far by a group of brats, of which just one was a ninja. A rookie genin. Those were his thoughts while he kept on controlling the kunais with slick movements of his fingers and hands. Oh, no, Naruto and the others couldn't do anything but stare in horror at the scene. The iron mist had trapped Karabi in it and he was getting more injured by the second. He felt so powerless he slapped his face. If they didn't do something, they were all going to die. Gaara. Why yes. The Redeed suddenly jumped, frightened by Naruto's sudden outburst. You said that you hurt people, before I mean, how do you do it? Can't you do anything to help? Gaara's eyes went wide, but then he lowered his head, shaking it slowly. No, sorry. I mean to use my power, I need sand. Without sand, I can't do anything. Naruto blinked at the reply and then panicked. Sand? How are we going to find sand here in Teddy? The two suddenly turned to Yagura, who was currently holding Gaara's teddy bear in front of him with both his hands. So? Naruto said, confused by Yagura's words. Suddenly, the silver-haired kid let the toy fall to the ground with a kind of a loud thud. Teddy's heavy. The boy replied. Naruto groaned. Of course it's heavy. Usually, they fill these things with. Suddenly Naruto blinked. Gaara mimicked him and then they turned to one another, voicing the same word at the same time. Sand. Gaara immediately grabbed his teddy and gave him a sorrowful glance. Sorry, Teddy. He proceeded to pull on it till he opened a big gap into its back. Then he began to shake it and sand began to pour out of it. Yes. So. Gaara kept on pouring sand till the teddy was empty. In front of him was enough sand to fill a beach bucket. It's not enough to kill him, Gaara said, noticing that the amount of sand that was now raising in the air wasn't enough to envelope a whole body into it. Naruto cursed under his breath. Ah. What do we do? What do we do? His hands. Yagura again. Naruto and Gaara blinked and turned to the battle again and then they saw that the ninja, to control all those kunais, was constantly moving his hands and fingers. His hands. If we take out his hands. Naruto turned to Gaara again, shaking him out of his reverie. Gaara, can you? Why yes. Gaara suddenly shot both his hands forward. The sand suddenly dissipated in a little cloud, becoming invisible to the eye, making it head towards the adult ninja. Damn. What the hell am I doing? I'm supposed to just kill Gaara. I could have just used this technique on him. No. I could have killed the boy from Kiri too. But time was running out. He had to kill the black nuisance and then get back to his mission. He was about to increase the speed of the kunai when suddenly he heard a familiar noise. Like the noise sand makes while falling down a Hercules, his eyes widened when he saw his hands getting enveloped by sand. Jigara. Esabaku Sausu. Shouted the little retard, closing his hands into fists with strength, and the sand around the ninja's hands mimicked its actions, clenching and crushing the appendages with brutal strength, making him scream in pain. The kunai suddenly stopped in mid-air before falling to the ground. "Good work, kids," Kurabi said while using his swords to deflect the last kunaise. He had a chance. Till the ninja was still shocked, he was going to go for the finishing blow. He rushed at the ninja. Ah. NNGH. Kurabi slammed into the ninja's stomach with two of his blades, going nicely through him like it was a soft steak. He then pulled them out and slammed them into his legs, earning another scream. Finally, he grabbed the other two and slammed them into his arms. He then picked out a kunai from the ground. "Istisii," he shouted and then slammed the kunai and the full weight of his body in the middle of the ninja's chest, making him fall to the ground on his back, the last scream dying in his throat. Naruto, during all the thing, had just been staring in the direction of the battle, in awe as first Gaara's sand crushed the bad guy's hands, and then Kurabi finished him. Now it was time to voice his awe. That was awesome. Hey, are you alright? The three younger kids all hurried to Kurabi said, noticing that he still was bleeding from his cuts. The Kumo Jinchuuriki just grinned. "No sweat. I kicked names and took ass." Wait, Kurabi had the sensation that that particular saying was the other way around. He shook his head. Never mind. More importantly, he turned his head to the man on the ground, who although heavily injured and profusely bleeding, was still alive. "Do you have any idea why this guy would want to kill you, Red?" "And no, I don't know," Naruto gulped, feeling as shaken as Gaara at the moment. "Well, maybe it's someone you know." Kurabi leaned down and grabbed the cloth covering the man's face, removing it with a sharp tug, and then Gaara's eyes widened and his heart skipped a beat. The person on the ground, the person that had been trying to kill him, it was indeed someone who he knew. The man laughed, weakly. "Impressive, Gaara-sama." Everyone jumped at Gaara's sudden outburst, Naruto being the one most frightened. The Redeed had suddenly grabbed his head with both hands and had screamed out while basically collapsing on the ground, tears starting to flow out freely. "Gaara. Gaara, what's wrong?" Naruto kneeled down as well, grabbing Gaara's shoulders, suddenly very worried about his friend's state. The teal-eyed kid didn't even hear him. He just kept on crying and screaming his soul out. "Gaara. Who?" He turned his head to the man, glaring at him. "Who are you? What have you done to him?" "Right now nothing," the man replied, coughing some more blood out of his mouth. Gaara, hearing his voice, seemed to calm down a little. He stopped screaming and simply began hiccuping and kept on crying. "Why," he said, hiccuping some more. "Yashimaru." Naruto then remembered of what Gaara had told him in the past days about his life in his village. He had told him that there was just one person who was nice to him, a certain Yashimaru, his uncle. He gasped. "You're his uncle?" If Gaara tried to rub away some of the tears on his face. "Only you were my friend." "It was an order," the man replied, seemingly gathering some leftover strength to talk in a clear voice. The phrase surprised Gaara, it seemed, by the way his body shook a little under Naruto's grasp. "I was ordered to assassinate you." The man took a pause to spit out some more blood. "By your father Kazuki-sama." Kurabi narrowed his eyes hearing those words. And Naruto's face became a mask of horror. Even Yagura seemed to be shaken by those words. Gaara was the most shaken one there, it seemed, since he suddenly lost his breakfast on the ground right beside Yashimaru's feet. "Why, you liar. That can't be." Naruto screamed. He couldn't believe that a dad could want to kill his son. A dad, it just can't be. "You're the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki, right?" Naruto stopped talking and got back on his feet, letting Gaara go when he heard that the guy knew who he was. He suddenly chuckled a little before coughing up more blood. "If you are, then you can understand." Naruto started to tremble as well. He knew that both he and Gaara were feared and hated, but to kill them he shook his head. That's not possible. Why would his own father want him dead? Because his father is Kazuki-sama. Naruto became even more confused, while Kurabi Hamed. He was Ikage's brother, so he sort of understood what the man meant. Unlike you, Gaara-sama was born to be possessed by the Sand Shukaku. Naruto and Gaara were listening to every word. Until today he has been watched over like an experimental subject. Yashimaru turned his gaze to Gaara again, who was still keeping his head low, tears and snot joining the vomit on the ground. "However, Gaara-sama, you are yet unable to control the powers of the Ichibi. Before long your existence will become too dangerous to the village itself. We simply couldn't let that happen." Naruto was trembling as well, this time in rage. An experiment, his own father, too dangerous, it sounded all impossible to his mind. So innocent, so naive, that of a child. Then Gaara sniffled a bit and seemed to regain some strength in his voice, a hint of a smile surfaced on his face, hearing those words. Then you had no choice, it was because of father. No. You're mistaken. Gaara's was shaken again, that tiny thread of hope that he had in his heart suddenly getting even thinner. Yes, I did receive Kazuki-sama's order. But I could have declined it if I wanted to. Gaara began to shake again, in fear. Lord Gaara Yashimaru moved his gaze, shifting it from the Riti to his own chest. Deep down inside, I must have always resented you. Naruto noticed how Gaara's eyes went unbelievably wide at that. For coming into this world, stealing life away from my dear sister. Gaara's tears stopped, it seemed like he had finished them. He raised his head again. Even his trembling had stopped. Every word was like a fresh stab wound to him. I tried my best to love you by thinking of you as her memento, but I couldn't. Yashimaru shifted his gaze to Gaara again. She never wished to give birth to you, she was sacrificed for this village and therefore died cursing at it. Kurabi was starting to feel uneasy as well. Those were some pretty harsh words. And all at the same time. In a short while Gaara had come to know that his father and uncle wanted him dead, leaving him without anyone left to love him, and that his own mother would have never wished for him to be born into the world. Perhaps from that moment on, I've been carrying never-healing emotional scars. Gaara began to remember what Yashimaru himself had told him about emotional scars. Your mother gave you your name. Yashimaru began to quote his late sister's words. This child name is Gaara. A demon that loves only himself, love only yourself and fight only for your sake, she wished and believed, and your existence is forever as long as you live so. Gaara was even more shocked. Yugura noticed this. His name had no meaning, but he preferred it to a name with such a meaning. Especially if. But she didn't give you the name out of concern or love for you, Yashimaru continued. Naruto was trembling in rage again, his fist shaking profusely. The name was given to you in the hope of your eternal existence, to let her grudge be carried down and be known to the world. The blonde gritted his teeth so much that they were almost hurting. You were never. Shut up. Idiot. Yashimaru suddenly stopped when it was Naruto, this time, who had an outburst, along with the act of kicking him. This surprised not only him but the other kids as well. He kept on kicking him. Idiot. 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 You're an idiot and a coward. Yes. You're a coward. Yashimaru kept his silence while Naruto kicked him again and again, before stopping. He was starting to cry and sniffle too. You said he sniffed up a large drop of snot, it sounded. You said Gaara's mom cursed the village and his father. He started to tremble again, in anger, before shouting loudly again. Then, why did you not get angry at them instead of Gaara? Do you think Gaara would have wanted his mom to die? Yashimaru kept on listening, along with Gaara. Instead of getting angry at them, you decided to get angry at Gaara. Because it was easy. Because everyone else already were doing so. You're a coward and a bad man. Idiot. Naruto said, tears falling from his eyes as well, hiccuping. So, Gaara's father doesn't love him. You hate him. I don't care. He doesn't need him. Because he has friends now. I am his friend. Gaara had stopped crying by now. He was staring at Naruto with wide eyes while he kept on talking, and he didn't know why, but he felt like smiling a little. Yashimaru thought about Naruto's words for a few seconds before smiling sadly. A coward, maybe you're right, but suddenly, Yashimaru's hands went for his chest. With his last strength he plucked out the kunai. It doesn't matter anymore, now. Ah. Kurabi's eyes widened when he recognized what was under the Jounin's jacket from the smoke suddenly raising. He grabbed the younger kids in a hurry. Paprabums. We have to get away. Naruto got startled by the sudden gesture, while Yashimaru let his hand fall to the ground again. This is it, please die. Kurabi, with his injuries, managed to make just a couple of meters before the paprabums exploded. The older kid threw all of them to the ground, closing his eyes. Oten. Doryuheki. Earth release. Earth style wall. A voice suddenly resounded loudly from in front of them, and the explosion never reached them. When the noise went off, the group of young Jinchuuriki turned around. Out of nowhere, an enormous wall of earth had appeared to shield themselves from the explosion. They turned in the other direction and saw Arashi crouched on the ground with his hands on it, sighing in relief. I made it in time. Break line. Seems like it was an assassination attempt against the Kazukiya's son. There's no way of identifying the attacker, though, since in a last desperate attempt at accomplishing his task, he exploded himself with a large number of paprabums. Rashi said, talking with the various Anbu while the kids rested on the steps of the nearby barrack, Kurabi being bandaged by the two from Kumo. Kurabi had decided to not say anything because he didn't know if him accusing the Kazukiya of such an act could be believed or if it could put his village into trouble. Gaara didn't want to talk about it. Naruto and Yugura, they probably didn't believe it was important. You shouldn't have endangered yourself like this, Kurabi-sama, one of the Anbu said. Kurabi just laughed. Ah. It was no sweat. Me and my comrades took care of the 3 Ao. Watch out with those bandages. If you stopped moving, maybe, Naruto said, grinning. Kurabi frowned. Hey, at least I got injured doing something, you know. He replied. Naruto frowned as well. He hated to admit it, but it was true. Back there, he had been useless. Kurabi had fought that guy, Gaara had used his sand to crush his hands and make them win, and even Yagura had done something. If it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have found the sand, nor would have they escaped him in the first place. He frowned even more. I really want to start the academy. His mind went back to how scared he had been, and he didn't know what to do. He didn't want to feel like that ever again. Gaara and Yagura had been mostly silent after getting brought back to the encampment. Yagura because he was just being himself. Gaara, he had a lot of thoughts on his mind. The shock of the latest events was still fresh in his mind, but someone was soothing them enough to calm him down. He turned to his right to Naruto, his sand still floating around him. And Naruto. Naruto blinked and turned to Gaara, breaking his thoughts about getting into the academy and getting super strong. Gaara swallowed and looked at the ground for a few seconds before looking at Naruto again. You were saying the truth. Naruto got a bit more confused at that. He tilted his head to the side. Gaara smiled a little. You want to be my friend? Eh? Of course I want to. Naruto said with a gasp. No, we already are friends, Gaara. You're the first friend I've ever had. Gaara lowered his head, smiling. F for real? Yes. I want to be friends, Gaara. Naruto said, nodding his head frantically. I don't want to be alone. And I don't want you to be alone. Even if we live far away. Naruto lowered his head sadly and then shook his head fast. We will always be friend. And we will see each other at least one time every year, right? And when we become ninja, we can visit each other whenever we want. Gaara raised his head and smiled a little, and then, suddenly, his sand started moving, startling Naruto and Yagura who were sitting beside him. The two gasped when the sand suddenly shot towards Gaara's forehead and they could see blood starting to flow from it. Gaara. What are you doing? Naruto asked but didn't move because the sand got in front of him. It's alright. NNNGH. Gaara was biting his lower lip while the sand started to engrave something on his forehead, over his left eyebrow. It took just a few seconds. When the sand got away from his forehead, where once there was clear skin, there now was a scar, no, a tattoo. Still bleeding, in the shape of a kanji. Gaara. To say that Naruto was speechless was an understatement. Gaara slowly turned his head back to face him. It's a kanji, it means friendship. Naruto was even more confused. Gaara was crying again, this time for a different reason, though. So this way I will never forget that I have a friend. When I feel sad or alone I will just look at it. Naruto kept his confused face on for a little while more before starting to cry as well. He rubbed his tears away and then the two young children hugged each other, smiling. Naruto suddenly felt someone else hugging him and Gaara from the side. The two looked down and saw Yagura crying too. You too? The silver-haired child just nodded. Naruto grinned and hugged him as well. Kurabi-sama, are you crying? No. This is just inspiration. You idiot. This scene is beautiful. No one is crying here, you idiot. Why Break line. So why is my mind a sower? I don't really know, Naruto. But it seems we're here. After a quick trip through his mind, Rashi and Naruto had arrived in front of an enormous steel gate with a piece of paper hanging from it. Naruto didn't saw anything in it before two enormous eyes opened from behind it. He flinched and then a growl resounded in the air. May I surprise even if I cannot devour you, a deep voice said before laughing lowly. Naruto swallowed. You're the Kyuubi? Said demon suddenly laughed again. Just my luck. What a smart kid. I've been sealed into. His enormous teeth appeared from the darkness too and Naruto shivered a little. So what did you come here for? You and this old human that the Kyuubi seemed to observe Rashi for a few seconds before talking again. You give out a familiar chakra, human. I should say so, Kyuubi. Rashi replied, crossing his arms over his chest. So, Naruto. What did we come here for? Naruto swallowed and then narrowed his eyes. I wanted to tell you that one day, I will if I may need your power. He suddenly shot his right arm and index finger forward. Why you will give it to me? Alright. The Kyuubi stared. 1, 2, 3. He started to laugh so loud that Naruto fell on his butt. Ahahaha. You threatening me? Ahahaha. Priceless. Naruto was confused at first, but then he got angry. Really angry. He started to throw a tantrum while Rashi palmed his face. The Kyuubi slowly calmed down. Ahahaha kid, you're a real clown, eh? Don't worry, though this seal is made so that if you die, I die too, so be assured that till I find a way out of here, I will not let you go meet the Shinigami. For real? The Kyuubi laughed a bit more and then just closed his eyes and mouth, disappearing into the darkness of his cage with Naruto and Rashi staring. The older Jinchuuriki nodded in acknowledgement. Seems like our work here is done. Let's go back outside. Break line. So it's goodbye. It was the morning of their departing. Everyone was going back home. Naruto pouted. The deal was that they were allowed to go back to the camp only till they became genin. And that meant that Kurabi wasn't coming back. Even if his rap was stupid, he was funny and he was so cool in his fighting. Gaara and Yugura were sad as well. You can't save someone's life without making them at least grateful to you. He grinned. Ah, don't be like that. We will be forever joined by the love for the fine art of rap. Still Naruto pouted and kicked the ground. I wanted you to teach me to do that thing with the swords. Impossible. Naruto blinked at the new voice, coming from Yujito, who had just flat out stated that Naruto couldn't learn Kurabi's style of fighting. That's a secret style Kurabi developed on his own. He can't teach you that. Also she looked at his body from the top of his head to the fingers of his feet. You look too much like an idiot for ever hoping to learn it. What? Naruto shouted. Kurabi just held him back with one hand while Yujito turned around and started to walk away. Leave her be. She's honest like that. And it's true that I couldn't teach you that even if I wanted to. Kurabi said. Naruto grumbled and then crossed his arms over his chest. Suddenly, an object came into his field of vision. A sword. One of Kurabi's swords. He looked up at the older Jinchuuriki who simply put the weapon into his hands. It's the only one left after that son of M, after that guy exploded himself. And you want to give it to me? Kurabi grinned and gave him a thumbs up. As long as you follow the way of the rap, you can try to learn and use at least one, right? He then ruffled the blonde's hair before starting to walk away, waving at them with one hand. So long, guys. Be strong and don't forget the rap way. Naruto stared at him and then nodded. You betcha. He then turned around, seeing Yugura and Utakata about to go away as well. The two waved at him and he waved back. So long, Yugura. Utakata Naichin. Let's play in the water again next year. Utakata smiled and nodded, and much to Naruto's shock even Yugura portrayed a small smile on his face. Naruto turned around and then headed to the two-leaf fanbu to lend them the sword before hugging Gaara tightly, or at least trying, since his face met the sand. Ow. My sand protects me. You probably were going to hurt me. With that hug Naruto rubbed his sore nose while grumbling under his breath. Gaara laughed. Hey, see, can I write to you? Eh? Of course. My address is Naruto sweat dropped. He didn't know. He turned to the two-leaf fanbu. Hey. Where do I leave? The two ninjas sweat dropped and one palmed his face before getting out a piece of paper and starting to write. Naruto grinned and turned back to Gaara to hug him not as tightly as he wanted before. I'll miss you. Write me lots. Yes. I will. Gaara said, hugging him back tightly. Naruto let him go and then hurried to the two older Jinchuuriki from Iwa, bowing in front of them. Thanks. I'll see you next year, Rashi Jaisen. Han-san. He said, bowing maybe a little too deeply. Rashi smiled at him and ruffled his hair, while Han just nodded. Satisfied, Naruto went to say to the last remaining Jinchuuriki only to find the girl still reading that book. Hey, I wanted to say hi. Mo? Ah, sorry. She said, putting the book away and stretching her arm and hand for Naruto to shake. Sorry, I was so caught by the story. Yes, I'll see you next year. Fu suddenly put a finger to her lips, signaling confusion, then she blurted out, sorry, what was your name again? If it wasn't that he was holding on her hand, Naruto would have ended up face on the ground for the first time in his life. Fu-chan, you're so strange. She laughed a bit nervously while Naruto let go of her hand, sighing. Well, my name is Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, alright. See ya. Ah. Alright. See ya next year, Naruto-san. She blinked, moving her gaze from the blonde to her book, then to Naruto again, then to the book again. She thought about it for a few seconds, and then he has the same name. Break line. Naruto, welcome back. Jai-san. Naruto, upon seeing the Hokage, obeyed to the instinct of glumping him. The old man laughed and held him up with one hand to bring the young one's face to the same level as his own. Man, I had so much fun. I met Gaara, and then a bad ninja, and then Kurabi gave me his sword, and… Haha. Calm down, Naruto. Slow down. The Hokage said, enjoying greatly the laughs and smiling face of the young blonde. So I made the right choice, then. I take it you liked it? Yes. I can't wait for next year. Continue. Book I, Chapter 3. Interlude I. Sunagakur. Welcome back, Gaara-sama. Welcome back. The red-haired child answered his servant's greetings with just a polite nod of his head. Being back in his home felt strange, especially after what had transpired a few days before. The ninjas who had accompanied him handed his luggage to the maids and then bowed. Gaara knew that they weren't bowing to him. He raised his head and his gaze met his father's one, his older brother and sister beside him. The Kazekage dismissed the two shinobi with a gesture of his hands. They disappeared in a puff of smoke while Gaara began to walk up the stairs. Welcome back, Gaara. Was your camp entertaining? Yes. Gar replied, with a low voice, and then his inner self began to fight. Should he or shouldn't he? Kurabi had told him to say those words to his father, but he swallowed. Uncle Yashimaru and Mom say hi. The Kazukiya's eyes widened a little, but he quickly regained his composure, while his other two children just stared at him in confusion while he walked right past them to his room. To the Kazukiyas those words meant something indeed. They meant that Gaara now knew probably everything. Yashimaru had not only failed, but he couldn't even die without spilling the beans, he internally cursed. Next time he would send someone more competent. In his room Gaara had put his teddy on his bed and then opened his window, staring at the village out of it. Those words he didn't understand completely what they were supposed to mean, but he didn't know why, they had brought a smile to his lips. Now, he was thinking about something else. Back then if I had had more sand with me, the others wouldn't have had to get hurt defending me. Maybe I should start carrying some sand with me. He puffed his cheeks while thinking about how to carry around some sand with him. He blinked when he remembered that once he had played by making his sand form shapes and objects. Maybe he could make a container with his sand and then put more sand into them. But what kind of container? It should be something that would limit his movements much, something that he didn't have to carry around with his hands. Maybe something like a backpack. He massaged his temples. This was going to take some time. Break line. Fumagakur. Ahahaha. Now that's what I call training. Maybe we should implement it into the academy. Please do not, Bratha. It was hell on hard A. Kurabi had just finished narrating about the hellish morning stroll of Rashi, and the Reikage had had a very good reaction, it seemed. At his younger brother's reaction he laughed even louder, unfortunately for his house's structural integrity. Let's do this. You knock the rap down a bit and I will not do so. Kurabi crossed his arms and frowned, muttering some kind of agreement under his breath. His older brother patted his head with one of his enormous hands a couple of times. Good boy. Now, you. He turned to the other chair in the room just to find that the girl had already disappeared. He groaned. That girl has already gone back to her home. Does she like training so much? Nah. I just think that she doesn't like social interaction, bro. The Reikage sighed. The camp didn't have any effect on that, he guessed. Alright, well, let's focus on important things. Your graduation. Want to know about your teammates and Jounin teacher. Break line. Ah. Yujito threw yet another kick at the training dummy in the middle of the garden. That was probably the quietest place for her, apart the seclusion of her own room. That because no one but the servants of the Reikage's clan and the clan members lived there. And they were the only one who didn't look at her like the rest of the village did. It had been a few days since she last trained seriously, apart the training stroll in the morning, and even if she didn't show it, she had enjoyed it. Being around other people who at least tried to talk to her, taking a bath in the river, basking in the sun, but yet, she didn't even try to make some kind of permanent bond. They all were Jinchuuriki, weapons, each one from a different village. It wasn't impossible that in the future they would fight each other. Sighing a little she sat on the steps just behind her, taking a towel from her backpack. In doing so something else came out of it and fell on the ground. A book. I still had this. She crouched down and picked up the book that Amaya had given her. She had read just a few pages of it, then quickly dismissed it since she really wasn't into reading. She opened it at the page she had stopped reading. Maybe just a few pages. Break line. Kurigakur. Izukage-sama. We brought back. Our 2 containers. I can see it. I'm not blind. The Mizukage said, still not turning around from his position on his chair, facing the wall instead of the people in his room. So he turned his eyes towards the 2 young Jinchuuriki. What have you learned? Igura kept his silence, like usually. Utakata usually did the talking for both of them, in front of the leader of Kurigakur. The other Jinchuuriki are all going through some kind of training to further exploit their demon's power, with the exception of the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki. The one from Konohagakure. Uzumaki Naruto. He said. And I've heard that you've gotten involved in the attempt at the Kazukiya's son's life, Yugura. The small Jinchuuriki nodded. He was roomed with him. It couldn't be helped. Utakata tried to say but he was cut off. I wasn't asking you. Is that the only reason why you've gotten involved in that accident? The leader asked again, his voice a bit harsher. He had heard that everyone else had been made full asleep to not involve them in the situation. The small boy just gave another nod. The Mizukage frowned. It was incredible how that child was unreadable even to him. Whatever. Get them out of my sight. Tomorrow they start training again. The 2 Jinchuuriki bowed and then were excused to the door by 2 older ninjas. Utakata raised an eyebrow when he saw Yugura took a hold of his backpack again. He usually just let other people take care of it because of the weight. Little did he know that inside the backpack he had a little present from one of his newest presents. A teddy bear. Break line. The Wagakur. So? Impressions. The Tsuchikage asked her soldiers while going through the pictures they had taken of the main subject of their surveillance at the training camp. He seems a pretty normal child, if not for the inherent traits of being a Jinchuuriki. Isolation, fear, hate the usual. Rashi said. The woman, leader of her village, nodded in acknowledgement of his words. So, he lives alone, she commented absent-mindedly. She snorted. Incredible being the son of his parents, but then again, his true identity has never been revealed to the public. Yes. So what now? She sighed and put away the pictures in a folder. Patience, Rashi. Patience, my plan will take a few years to realize. He's still a child, after all. Breakline. The Kigakur. And then I noticed he had the same name as the gutsy ninja. Isn't that strange? Eh? Yes it is, Amaya-chan, the Takakage said, scratching the side of his head. Indeed, a name like Naruto was pretty unusual, if not unheard of, but for the girl to get so worked up over it, it was probably because she noticed just on the last day. Why don't you go play with Shibuki? Alright. The girl said with a pout, understanding that her speech had bored the leader of Takigakur, maybe a tad little more than usual. But she had just repeated it 4 times. The man sighed, slumping in his chair, while his wife put a hand on his right shoulder. I suppose she just was engrossed in that book all the time yet again, the woman said. Yes, but it seems that now she has something to look forward to for the next year. He said, chuckling at how his son was the next victim of the how a boy I know has the same name as the gutsy ninja. I bet that next time she will be more active also. She said that she has given her spare copy to another girl. Maybe unknown to them, Naruto was already through a quarter of the book. Breakline. Hanahagakure. Why? I want my sword. Naruto, will you please shut up one moment and listen? The Sandaime felt an headache coming his way. He massaged his temples. After Naruto had told him everything about the training camp, including how the Raikage's younger brother had gifted him with one of his swords, he had taken said weapon away. Naruto pouted and crossed his arms over his small chest, ending his rant. Good. Now, Naruto, you must understand a couple of things. First, learning Kenjutsu is probably one of the most difficult things existent. It takes years. And so? Naruto said. No one starts by using a real sword. Inexperienced people just hurt themselves, sometimes irreversibly. Would you like injuring yourself to that extent? Naruto understood that irreversibly meant a lot, he guessed. So he shook his head. Good. So, till you're of a suitable age and ability where you can use a real sword. The Hokage snapped his fingers and his secretary came in, holding something in a scabbard. Naruto perked up when the woman handed him the object. It was a wooden sword. This is a so-called bakken, a training sword. It's made to represent your real sword as closely as possible, minus the weight, since you're just 6 years old. Naruto observed it with curiosity. Indeed, it felt as heavy as the sword Kurabi had given him. Also, the sword was heavily damaged. It needs repairs. So, here's a deal, Naruto. I'll give your sword, fully repaired, back to you once you learn how to use it. How does it sound? Naruto pouted a little, but nodded nonetheless and put the bakken back into its scabbard. Jai-san, can anyone teach me? Yes, indeed. But it will have to wait till you enter the academy. Without the basics, you can't learn anything more complex, Naruto. For now, I suggest that you focus on some basics exercises. I can show you those myself. The blonde pouted a little bit and then suddenly lightened up. He had almost forgotten about it. Right. The academy. When do I begin? Breakline. September 13th. Everyone, congratulations on entering. From this day forth, please work hard to follow the shinobi way. Naruto was standing alone in a crowd, as incredible that could sound. An oxymoron. But there was a fundamental difference in that moment. In another situation, he would have been depressed by the fact that everyone was with one of their parents. And even if it still was like that, a little, the most pressing thing on his mind was the fact that that morning another letter from Gaara had arrived and that he wanted to go into the classroom as soon as possible and open it. After the speech from the Hokage had ended, Naruto had followed the teacher and his other companions into the classroom. While most of the other children started talking to each other, he immediately sat somewhere near the end of the classroom and opened the letter. They had been sending a letter a week ever since the camp ended. Dear Naruto. Thanks for the pic of Konoha you sent me last time. It really is a nice place, with all those trees. And it was funny how the faces of your cages were sculpted into the mountain. We just have statues. I sent you a pic of it. I'm in it along with my brother and my sister. How are you doing with your training? Are you now able to swing around the training sword or is it still too heavy? Me, I finally found a way to carry my sand around. I've made it into a gourd that I carry on my back and that I fill with other sand. But it's so heavy I will have to get used to it. And also, I will have to better control the sand to make it better shape. Hope to see you soon too. Bara. The photo, ah. Here. Naruto searched for the envelope and found what he was looking for. It was a pic of Gaara and 2 other people standing in front of 4 big statues. Gaara was in the middle, smiling. He noticed that the tattoo was now black. To his sides, but a bit far from him were a girl with long blonde hair tied in 4 tails and a boy with dark brown hair. He pouted for him. Even his brother and sister were afraid of him. He put picture and letter back in the envelope and placed them in his backpack near his feet. He would ride him back once he went back home. He then began to look around. There were a few children that he had seen before. Like the chubby one who kept on eating snacks. A few seats down he could see a couple of kids talking between them. He focused and he could hear that they were talking about yet another kid. That's an Uchiha, right? He must be awesome and things like that. He looked at who they were looking at too. It was a kid with very dark hair, with something like a fan drawn on the back of his shirt, in red and white. What's an Uchiha? Naruto thought, scratching the underside of his chin. He would have to ask Jai-san next time he heard. Suddenly, the door opened. The teacher was coming in. Naruto swallowed. He was nervous, but it was time to pay attention. He had to get stronger, right? People became ninja in there. So he needed to be a good student so he could become a good ninja. Break line. You've done good, children. Iruka said. Well, not really. But after all it was just the first day. Apart a few others, the majority of the students who had just finished running in the courtyard were exhausted. And even those few were breathing and sweating heavily. That's all. Everyone but him. He turned around only to find out that one of the kids, the one who he had had an immediate dislike for from the first moment he had seen him for obvious reasons, wasn't even panting. He was just sweating, and not even heavily. Yes, that's all Naruto. Why do you ask? The child's name came out of his mouth with a lot of effort. Naruto just scratched the back of his head. Well no, I usually do something a lot more sweaty. He said. Iruka crossed his arms over his chest, his face in a little frown. Naruto winched. Maybe he had told something bad. But the guy who told me to do this is a sadistic old man. So, never mind. Well, why don't you show us, Naruto? What do you usually do? Iruka said, a bit harsh. Naruto dropped his head. The first day and he had already made people angry. Well first, I do 5 minutes of running like we did right now. Then Naruto didn't know how to explain the next thing. Then I keep on running for half an hour, but I do it zigzag between the trees. Zigzag. Iruka stated. Naruto scratched his right cheek. Yes like ma. You too, come here. Naruto ran to the other students and suddenly dragged with him the chubby boy and the other who had fallen asleep on the ground. He then put them a few meters from each other. He then started to run from one another, circling around them with sharp turns to change directions. Like this. Usually I did it in a forest, but since I can't go alone in the forest, I now do it like this. Iruka raised an eyebrow at that. That was an exercise of the advanced type. Even if it didn't look much to an amateur, running like that puts strain on your legs. It was an exercise that focused on making your legs more springy. I see. That's all. No. Then Naruto stopped and then began to look around. He saw a big ball. One of the heavy ones. He crouched down and picked it up. Then, I go for an hour holding this ball in my hands and hopping. He demonstrated, hopping with the ball in his hand forward, earning a few laughs from his peers. He blushed. Iruka's eyes widened. Usually, though, I carry a rock heavier than this ball. Iruka was shocked. And almost 6 years old doing that kind of exercise. It was unorthodox, but he could see what it meant. It took an enormous amount of strain and effort doing that. Hopping while holding that kind of weight in his hands, that's enough, Naruto. Naruto dropped the ball, still blushing a little. That's a heavy exercise, Naruto. Try not to overdo it, alright? Alright. Naruto said, noticing that the teacher wasn't really angry anymore. He looked more like annoyed. It was a step forward. Break line. 4 months later. Break time. Naruto said, stretching. He always felt annoyed. Writing things down wasn't exactly what he liked to do best. The first days his wrists hurt after writing so much, but by now he was used to it. He guessed it was also because of the training with the sword. The Hokage had told him that real study of the Kenjutsu would begin just in his second year of the academy, since he still wasn't strong enough to swing a real sword around efficiently. So, for now, he was training his posture and how to hold and swing it correctly. Also, the Hokage had told him that the sword that his friend had given him was particular, as in, it was bladed on both sides and lighter than the standard katana. It was probably made so that one could switch from using it with one hand to 2 hands and in a lot of ways. So, he trained swinging it from various angles, holding it in various ways. But all in front of him, for the moment. It's still snowing. Naruto said, looking outside of his window. He then checked his backpack again to be sure that that thing was still in the backpack, and for once it wasn't his Bakken. It was a small package with a ribbon that he had to send that afternoon. It was a gift for Gaara's birthday that was coming in a few days. He grinned, holding around his neck the gift that the Redeed had sent him himself. A orange scarf. How he had gotten a scarf in the desert, he didn't know. I bet he will love it. Ah. Leave me alone, Ami. His ears suddenly perked and he narrowed his eyes. He had not made many friendships, scratch that. None at all. First he was pretty eager to do it, but it seemed like exchanging letters with Gaara had supplied to all his missing affection. But even if he hadn't made many friendship, there were a few children who he disliked. One of those was a girl with purple-bluish hair. Her name was Ami, and the most he had seen her do till now was bullying other children. The first 2 months she was just pretty silent and grumpy, but then she had suddenly discovered that she was pretty smarter, stronger and slightly more intimidating than most children her age. From that day on, she had taken an habit of bullying other people. Naruto didn't like that at all. She didn't get more than one chance with him because he didn't stay in class much. When they ate, he ate away from her and the other children. When there was break time, he went to a secluded angle of the courtyard and practiced with his Bakken. Not that she had much to bully him about, well, that only chance she had almost ripped off his cheeks along with his whiskers. So, those ones, he guessed. Break line. It's colder than usual, today. Naruto said, breathing into his hands, trying to warm them. It was late afternoon, and snow was slightly falling down. The postal office was almost closing, so he had to hurry if he wanted to send the package. It took the thing 3 days to arrive to the sand village, but he wanted it to arrive a bit earlier. I just hope they aren't mean to me like the others. After getting to know about his secret, Naruto's attitude towards the majority of the village had changed slightly. Previously he just was sad, and he was certain he could have started to become really angry at them, but now that he knew just why they looked at him like that, he just thought of them as stupid poop heads. He was angry at them, but not very angry. It wasn't all their fault after all. Gaara said so too. I just hope that it doesn't start snowing even heavier. Naruto had stopped walking towards the post office, his backpack stopping his swaying because of it being strapped over just one shoulder. He had noticed something. That being someone he knew sitting alone in the middle of the playgrounds. What is she doing? Naruto silently came a bit closer to the playground. It just didn't make sense to him. She was alone without her 2 usual friends who helped her bully other people, and at that hour. Late afternoon during winter meant complete darkness. Just the light of the playground lightened her figure. Ami was sitting alone on top of a swing. Naruto noticed that her face was sad. And she had been crying, it seemed. They don't care. Naruto had always been curious about something. Mainly, just why Ami liked to bully other people that much. That day he discovered a lot about it. The more he came closer, the more evident it became. A couple of bruises on her face and on her legs. Also, he saw that she had made a drawing in the snow with a stick. A birthday cake. Naruto didn't show it much, or maybe he was smart just when faced with certain things. In that case, his little mind connected all the dots perfectly, just as he was near enough for her to hear his footsteps. But he talked before she did. They bully you too. Her head shot to the side hearing that voice and recognizing one of her classmates. She narrowed her eyes at him. What are you doing here? They bully you too, right? Your brothers, I think I saw some older boys picking you up at school, once. He continued, not fazed by her usual angry face. Ami just gritted her teeth and turned around, not wanting to face him. And they forgot your birthday? He said. No. They knew. They just didn't care. Not even mom or dad. She hiccuped, biting on her lower lips. She didn't want to cry in front of other people. Naruto pouted a little. She had hurt him a lot and she had hurt the other students too. But he sighed. He just couldn't help it. He set his backpack on the ground and opened it. Ami suddenly turned around, hearing him rustle. He picked out of the backpack a big package enveloped in colored paper. Pink with gold stars, with a red ribbon. He handed it to her, earning a clear face of surprise from the girl. Happy birthday. He simply said. The girl stared at him like he had grown a second head. He just pushed the package further in her face. Come on, I can't hold it like this all day. For me? Naruto nodded, still pouting. Now he had to go and buy another. The girl slowly picked the package from Naruto's hands, then proceeded to open it up in a hurry, sending paper flying in all directions. Under the colored paper she found a teddy bear, still in its transparent box. She stared at the toy almost in awe. Then she lowered her head, looking at the ground. What is it? You don't like it? He said, suddenly concerned. No, it's that my brothers break all my toys. She replied, sad. His mouth let out a "oh." Then do you want me to keep it? When you want to play with it, you can come to my house. I live alone, so he said. Ami turned to him and thought about it, and then she nodded. She then opened the package and picked out the teddy bear. Naruto pouted even more. Now he had to buy another teddy. What's your name? Naruto almost fell to the ground. She had almost ripped his face off and she didn't remember his name. Well, he wasn't that noticeable in class. Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. He said, sitting on the other empty swing. Ami nodded and hugged the teddy to her chest, a small smile coming to her face. Thank you, she said. Naruto just nodded and then started asking himself why he had just given Gaara's gift to someone who had been so bad to him and other people. It didn't make sense, right? Break line. 3 months later. His eyes were focused on the object that was taking shape in front of him. He had made a lot of practice with his powers. With his sand. Gaara had found out that while full shapes were basically just a matter of time, shapes that had space inside them were a bit more difficult. For example, now he was trying to make his sand take the shape of a cage with a good enough number of bars. The amount of focus he had to put into the thing was incredible, and the time it took, but he had found out that once he formed a shape for the first time with much effort, it took him from little to no time to do it in a matter of seconds. It was just a matter of practice, it seemed. 2 sides he had managed to build 2 sides of the cage, complete with bars. Just 2 more sides and the upper part to close it. The bars were slowly creating themselves out of running sand. 1 more side. Gaara. The Redeed let out a small yelp and the cage of sand turned back to a mini-sized dune at his feet. Gaara turned around with a small frown, meeting his sister, who flinched a bit at his gaze. He realized he had been scaring her. Sorry, I didn't want to scare you, Gaara pouted. I was really focused. Ah, sorry, the little girl said, still a bit uneasy, even if Gaara had turned to sad, from slightly angry. It's just she held out her right hand and arm, showing to Gaara and enveloped. The Redeed got back on his feet and basically ran to Temari, grabbing the envelope in a hurry. The letter from Naruto. This was one of the first tricks he had learned. He used his sand to basically get taller, putting more and more under his feet. In a flash, he got to Temari's height and kissed her on the cheek. Thanks, Ni-chan. He then ran past her and up the stairs to his room, leaving a surprised Temari behind. It was the first time that Gaara ever managed to display affection towards her without the sand interfering. He really had become better at controlling it. Break line. Naruto was another child currently focusing on something. After much time, he had finally learned enough for his sword swings to do some actual damage well, in theory. Since he was still training with a Bakken, it wasn't like he could dent the training dummy that had been provided to him, being it made of hay and such. Immune to any bludgeoning damage. Man, I want my sword suddenly, someone knocked on his door. He got up from the floor and approached it. Who is it? It's me, Naruto. He recognized the voice and opened the door, letting the violet-haired girl inside and closing the door right behind her. He turned around to discover she was already gone, like usual. Like he had proposed, he basically kept in his house all her toys and she would from time to time to play with them. She had already shot into his room and picked out her teddy bear, hugging it to death. I missed you, Teddy. You're going to break him if you keep on hugging him that tight every single time. She just replied by sticking out her tongue at him. He sticked his own one back. So, wanna play with me? She asked, turning to him. Naruto shook his head. Sorry, Ami-chan. I have to finish training. The girl pouted. Naruto was fun to play with, but most of the time she came to his house, he couldn't play with her because he spent most of the time making homework and then training with that wooden sword of his. Naruto noticed her look and scratched the back of his head. I'm sorry. You always train, do you ever play? She said, turning her head to the side while still pouting. Naruto winced at that. He scratched the back of his head. Now that I think about it, no. You're boring. Naruto blinked. He boring? It was the first time in all his life that someone had ever used that adjective for himself. Thinking about it, though, he guessed that he trained maybe too much. He was a kid and kids were supposed to play, right? He was only supposed to do the academy's homework and he would be alright. He didn't need to do old man's Rashi course every morning or train with his Bakken. Sorry, Ami-chan. But I have to train because Naruto pushed out his lips, trying to think how to explain his situation when he himself didn't know the specific reason for his perseverance in training. He sat down cross-legged. I don't know, I told you about that training camp I went to last summer, right? Yes, you did. So? Ami replied, still not looking at him directly. Well, we got into some trouble. A bad guy tried to hurt us. That got Ami's attention. She turned to Naruto, still hugging her teddy. Naruto scratched the back of his head. In the end, we managed to get rid of him and got away unhurt mostly. But the fact is, I was the only one who couldn't do anything to defend ourselves. Really? Ami said. Naruto nodded. Yes, these people I met, they're my first friends. And so I don't want to be not as strong as they already are. I don't know why, but Naruto scratched further, like it could drop some more words onto his tongue. He pouted as well. It's difficult, it's like, I feel I can't stay their friend if I don't get strong enough. Ami stared at the blonde for a little while, thinking about his words. She remembered her older sister saying something similar, once. I think I kind of understand that. Ah, really? Because I don't really understand it myself. Naruto laughed right after saying those few words. Well, Ami thought about something, maybe she needed to be strong too, to stay near Naruto. After all, she too couldn't do anything against some things that hurt her also. Naruto wanted to become strong. Maybe he liked strong people, then. Maybe he would not want to be her friend anymore if she didn't become strong too. She suddenly frowned. Would she have to ask her? Break line. Then I'll be going, mother. Yes. Be well, daughter. The teenager closed the front door behind her and let out a sigh. She had hoped to find her younger sister at home. That was the only reason she even came back to that home at all. She had always felt guilty about going away and leaving her behind in that hell of a home, but she just couldn't bear her parents and younger brothers anymore. They were just. Ni-chan, she blinked. So focused she had been in thinking and walking that she hadn't noticed someone walking towards her. She raised her eyes upon hearing that familiar voice. She found her younger sister right in front of her. The usual look on her face. A bit sour, and she wasn't looking at her at all. Good evening. Ah. Ami. The teenager approached her younger sister and kneeled down to her eye level, putting her hands on her small shoulders. You were out playing. I almost missed you. The older girl blinked, surprised. Ever since she went away from home her little sister had always showed nothing but contempt and resentment towards her. But now, she looked uneasy. Ni-chan, What is it, Ami? Something wrong? I heard you entered the academy, right? Something wrong with that? The older woman said. Ami bit her lower lip. She really didn't want to ask a favor to her, but. Something like that, Ami said. The little girl decided to just say it. Ni-chan, you're a strong ninja, right? That was a question that seriously surprised her. Of course she was a strong ninja. She was a chunin about to take the Anbu exam. But what was it to her? Well, yes, why do you ask? Ami swallowed. Asking her that would mean spending time with her, and she really didn't want that, but she didn't want to take the risk of losing Naruto as a friend. She raised her head, her eyes showing determination. Yuga-nichan, can you help me become a strong ninja? Eh? The purple-haired teenager blinked. That was a really sudden question, but she smiled. Maybe it was just a way to spend some time with her older sister. She held back a sigh of relief. She was starting to suspect that she hated her. Of course, Ami. I can. Break line. Okage-sama. Iruka. What a surprise. You rarely visit me in my offices. The Sandaime said, pleasantly surprised. Indeed, Iruka never visited him when he was in his office. He preferred more informal places. Sarutobi put away the folder he was going through and welcomed the tan man with a smile. How goes your work at the academy? Very good, Hokage-sama. Iruka really had been enjoying himself. He had always dreamed of being a teacher, and this first year had been going incredibly good. He had had some doubts at the beginning because of a certain student, but actually, I'm here to talk about one of my students. The Hokage's smile faltered a bit, but not much. Probably because Iruka didn't have the face he thought he would have. Young Naruto, right? Iruka nodded in reply. How is he doing? Very good. Almost perfect, I must say. Iruka continued, rubbing the bridge of his nose. For a first-year student, it's amazing. He's acing all his exams in all his subjects. In his classroom, only the Uchiha kid has the same grades. Of course, from the second year onward we will introduce chakra control exercises, and that another story altogether, but he seems like a very promising student. I'm happy to hear that. Sarutobi said, nodding. Frankly, he believed that Naruto was eventually going to take the same road Iruka once took himself. Being the class joker to get the class's attention. But it seemed that the training camp had had a good effect if he had realized he didn't need to do it. Anything else? Well, nothing troublesome, but there's something bugging me. Iruka said, scratching the back of his head. The Sandaime nodded to him, authorizing for him to talk. Well, how can I say it's about Naruto's physical activities? The exercises in PE. Maybe they're too hard. Iruka shook his head vehemently. The total opposite, Hokage-sama. They seem never enough for him. The teacher replied truthfully. I mean, I still remember the first day of academy. All his peers were exhausted from the exercise they had just went through, while he wasn't even winded. After that, he showed me a routine he does every morning. Sarutobi understood where Iruka was going with his words. I mean, apart his absurdly enormous stamina, just who has thought him that exercise? It's absurdly heavy, and it has some good thought behind it. Is someone training Naruto? No, not currently. No one is training Naruto outside of the academy apart himself. But Sarutobi took out his pipe and some tobacco out of one of his drawers, lighting it quickly with his chakra. I bet that Naruto has mentioned something about a training camp, right? Yes, he mentioned this a couple of times to one of his friends, the class bully, Ami. Well, not so much anymore. Her bullying had toned down quite a bit ever since she befriended Naruto. Now that he thought about it, she was the only person Naruto had befriended. He didn't try to relate to his other peers at all, totally engrossed in his studying and the letters he exchanged with someone on a weekly basis. Naruto learned that exercise from one of the caretakers of the camp. That's all. The caretaker is an experienced ninja. Is that a sufficient explanation? Sarutobi said, puffing some smoke from his mouth right after. The training camp, but what kind of training camp? And why did he join it before even joining the academy? Haruka asked, wanting to know the specifics. The Sandaime sighed, expecting such a question. I'm sorry but I can't share those details, Haruka. They're a matter of security as much as Naruto's situation is. Haruka was surprised by that. Something that had to be kept that secret. He immediately understood that he wasn't going to get anything else out of the fire shadow. But he still couldn't help but wonder. Break line. June the 13th. Finally over. Naruto screamed in joy as Haruka had just announced that school was over and vacation was due. Naruto extremely cherished vacations because of all the effort he put into studying. No academy meant that he had more time for himself other than the daily training he put himself through. Naruto. The blonde turned around with a grin. He guessed that Ami would be even more excited than him. The girl had started some personal training too, she had told him. She had asked her sister to train her and had moved out of her home thanks to that. He had been a bit surprised because she had told him time and time again that he resented her sister. But now they seemed to be getting along day by day better with one another. They had even invited him to dinner a few times. We have 3 months of vacation, now. You can say no anymore. I guess I can't. The blonde boy said, rubbing the underside of his nose. No escape this time. Apart from that couple of weeks, you know. Ah, right. Ami said, nodding in acknowledgement. He had told her about the training camp and that it was always held in summer. But she wasn't that bothered. 2 weeks out of 3 months were still great in her book. Break line. Sunagakur. Where will the camp be held this summer, father? Gaara asked to his father while trying on his newest clothes in front of a mirror. He had decided to drop the overgrown cloth for a black t-shirt to wear over his pants. The thing was always in the way of his gourd. Kumagakur has the honor of having you and the other Jinchuuriki for guests this year. The Yondaime Kazukiage replied, observing as Gaara then put on the gourd to observe how it looked with the new clothes. The man had grown more worried by the day. Now that Gaara knew about his mother and his plans for him, getting rid of him was an even more pressing matter. Not because of his lack of control, that seemed to have taken a turn for the better in that last year. Gaara had not incidentally hurt anyone again ever since he came back. But because of the secrets he now knew, how would he act upon them once he reached a certain age? A certain level of power. Then maybe we will be able to see Kurabi-san again. Gaara said, while observing his reflection in the mirror. The gourd looked okay with the new clothes, he guessed. The sash of the thing was of a dark green color. The Kazukiage kept on observing his son. Ever since that day and the greetings from the grave, he had fatigued in reading the redeed. He had tried to have him assassinated once more, but it had ended in failure as well. Also there had been the big problem that Gaara had not killed him. If someone had discovered him, he had to dispose of the person and the body himself. Gaara wasn't becoming only stronger. He was becoming more cunning as well. Did he really force him to grow up ahead of time? Alright. When do I depart, father? Gaara said, turning around to look at the Kazukiage with an emotionless expression on his face. The camp starts on the 15th of July. But to reach Kumagakur in time you will have to depart 3 days earlier. So, the 12th of July. Understood. Now please excuse me, father. Gaara bowed a little, picked up his teddy with his sand, and then walked out of the room, leaving the wind shadow alone with his thoughts. Break line. Ikigakur. Less clothes, a copy of the Gutsy Ninja, my swimming suit. Checking the backpack yet again, Amaya. The leader of Taki asked his little protege, who just nodded frantically at him. Yes. I don't want to risk to have to go back because I forgot something. She said, checking her backpack yet again. The man rolled his eyes. But you do realize that there are still 3 weeks before the day of the departure, right? Well, better safe than sorry. Amaya retorted, renewing her efforts at double speed, earning a booming round of laughter from the Takakage. He approached the girl and put a hand on her head. Amaya immediately settled down at that, blushing a bit. Sorry, it's just that you want to be sure to spend the most time you can with that boy, right? Amaya just nodded shyly. The first crush. But it's not that. I mean, he's the Gutsy Ninja. She replied, her eyes wide. The man just smirked. And didn't you have a crush on the Gutsy Ninja ever since you first read the book? Amaya opened her mouth to retort and then just began to smoke out of embarrassment. The man laughed some more and patted her on top of her head once more before going on his merry way, leaving behind a pretty confused Jinchuuriki. Break line. Kurigakur. So we're going to Kumagakure this year. What do you think, Yagura? Utakata said to his younger colleague while he practiced blowing pink bubbles with his pipe. The small child just kept on observing a big plant that was now in front of him. The older Jinchuuriki chuckled. Yes, be like that. I know that you want to see Naruto and Gaara again. Maybe. The child said. In the past year Yagura had started saying more and more words, even if the occasions in which he opened his mouth were still just a few. This time try and remember to give them our address, even if I doubt their letters will ever get through. Yes. The silver-haired child nodded, a bit sad now because of what he had been reminded of. The Mizukage allowing them to receive letters from other Jinchuuriki. Yeah right. When hell froze over. Break line. Kumagakure. She was focused on the task at hand only and she hoped to God that this time nothing kept her from succeeding. It seemed like the gods themselves were conjuring against herself to complete that task. Well, it was also partly her fault because of the secrecy with which she had treated the matter at hand. No one was to know of it. But it was frustrating, having so few steps missing and yet. Nai-sama. I've brought your breakfast. She held back a curse as she immediately put the book away under her cushion and the maid found a strange sight. An 11-year-old girl doing push-ups on her bed. As active as ever, I see. Why yes. Please leave the tray on the table. Internally she was cursing herself. Not for her carelessness, but because of letting herself having been engrossed that much in such a stupid thing. A book. With a title like The Gutsy Ninja. Break line. The Wagakure. Are you sure about this, Tsuchikage-sama? I am. The woman said, placing the envelope in the hands of the eldest of the two Jinchuurikis currently in front of them. Rashi picked it up slowly and passed it to Jauki, who proceeded to go through its contents as well. Thanks to last year's incident we've been able to collect a sample of the young one's blood and now that the test have confirmed our suspicions well, it's time to move this forward. Jauki stared at the content of the envelope with wide eyes. This kind of information were they really going to? But remember. The Tsuchikage said, crossing her fingers with each other in front of her covered face. The offer has to be made on the last day of the camp. Understood. Right before he goes home. Yes, Tsuchikage-sama. Rashi bowed and engraved the order in his mind. It was going to be done. Break line. July the 12th, Kanehagakure. This year, I've decided to assign the guard duty to you two. This year, differently from the last one, the camp will be held in foreign territory. Sarutobi said, eyeing the two Anbu standing in front of him. I've decided to assign this mission to you two because of your particular abilities Owl-san. Crow-san. The Sandame joked with the coded names of the two. He didn't know himself why, but he found them amusing. Yes, Hokage-sama. We understand. The older of the two, hiding behind Owl's mask said, before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. The other one stayed behind. This other Anbu, hiding behind a crow mask, was positively younger. He looked to be around 12, max 13 years old. And his long raven hair went good with his codename. Hokage-sama. The young ninja said, earning a smile from the fire shadow. I believe you stayed behind because you wanted to ask me something, Itachi-kun. The young one took the mention of his real name as a permission to remove his mask. Why did you assign me on this mission, considering my situation? Sarutobi knew it would be about that. It was incredible how this boy was so dutiful even considering his personality and just what had been asked of him. Because I think you need a break from it, Itachi-kun. Being a double agent in your own family can be pretty draining. And I'm not talking about free time. Sarutobi said, earning the lowering of Itachi's gaze to the floor. The strongest 13 years old in the village, but still a kid. Also, for two other reasons. First, this mission will give you enough credit to undergo the exam to become an Anbu captain. Second, because I firmly believe that you're perfectly suited for this mission. Itachi was unusually sharp for most kids of his age and even for most adults, but with the Sandame there still was no chance at all for him. He couldn't get the meaning behind that last part of the speech. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? This training camp and everything that will happen in it will weigh heavily on the balance between the major countries. It's supposed to strengthen our bonds, but who knows what could happen. Last year we had someone who tried to assassinate the Kazukiyage's son. Sarutobi let Itachi think about his words for a few seconds before smiling at him and continuing. So, for such a delicate mission, who is better suited but someone who loves peace and his village as much as you do, Itachi-kun? Itachi's eyes widened slightly at that. He then allowed himself a little smile. Sarutobi Hizarin really was kind. Maybe too kind, considering his position. He had assigned him to that mission so that he could do something important for his village without having mixed feelings like it was happening so often because of his permanent mission as a double agent in his family. Break line. July the 12th. Alright. You sure you didn't forget anything, Naruto? I checked 4 times. I'm ready to go, Jai-san. Naruto said, grinning. In a year, Naruto hadn't changed much. He had gained a few centimeters of height, but that was that. The most blatant change were his clothes. It seemed like a love for black had joined his love for orange that year. His sandals and t-shirt were black. Orange were his pants and the spiral motif on the front of his shirt. Good. Now, this year, you will have to travel. The camp this year takes place in Kumagakure. Naruto blinked and rubbed his chin, squinting his eyes. Kumo Kurabi Nai sends home. Then Naruto suddenly saddened. Right, Kurabi wouldn't be at the camp anymore. Too bad. Well, your guards and traveling companions for this year are Owl-san and Crow-san. Naruto blinked when two armor-clad masked figures appeared in front of him. One was much taller than the other, so much that he could understand that the shortest one was probably the same age of Kurabi. Not that much older than him, then. But he knew something. He had seen those armored ninjas before and they were supposed to be super strong, super badass ninjas. So young and he already was a super strong, super badass ninja. They will protect you and accompany you. Try to get along. But the shock about one of his guards' age currently left space to a more childish and simple thought. But are they going to travel 3 days in those clothes? It looks uncomfortable. Indeed, but do not worry. It's just a hinge. The oldest of the two replied before releasing his transformation along with his younger counterpart. They both were wearing the same, standard attire for Leaf Jounins. You can call me Yamato, Naruto. It's nice to meet you. Itachi. Naruto oohed in awe. And I heard the teachers said that we would study that the next year after we learn chakra manipulation. Naruto nodded to himself, a bit proud that his memory was that good and that he had been so attentive to the point of being able to hear things that two teachers said to each other during a break. Yes, Naruto. Now, I think it's time. You don't want to be late, right? Naruto shook his head. No, I don't, Jai-san. But I'm waiting for. Naruto. Someone. Naruto rolled his eyes and turned around with a grin to see a running Ami approach him from afar. When she stopped right in front of him she was a panting mess, using her own legs as support, her hands on her knees. Ami-chan. Woke up late. Your fault W who wakes at 5 o'clock. Everyone who wasn't 7 or almost 7 years old rolled their eyes. Yes, even Itachi. If only they did know. Naruto just shrugged. Don't ask me. He kept his grin on his face while Ami seemed to regain enough breath to stand on her own. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Yes, have fun and bring me something. Naruto chuckled and nodded, even if he really didn't know what he could find to bring her if it was anything like the camp in Konoha. Ami was shifting her weight from foot to foot uncomfortably, looking in doubt about something. She bit her lower lip and blushed a little. She slowly leaned forward and opened her arms, slowly enveloping Naruto in a hug. The blonde blinked. It was the first time Ami displayed her affection to him in such a physical way. He then smiled and hugged her back. If you tell anyone, I'll kill you. I bet that if it wasn't so early in the morning you would have never done it. Ami blushed a little at that. Somehow, she doubted that. She felt this strong urge of hugging him after thinking that it would be the first time since she knew him that they would be away from each other for such a long period of time. She broke the embrace and nodded, though. Well, alright. See ya, Ami-chan. Naruto turned around and began to walk towards the front gate, followed suit by Yamato and Itachi. Strangely, Itachi's backpack was the only one that didn't bounce even slightly on his back, the Hokage noticed. He sighed. Ichiha indeed. Break line. July the 13th. So Itachi, you're one of those armor-wearing ninjas too, right? Naruto had been trying to initiate some kind of conversation with Itachi, he didn't know how many times on that day and a half of travel, but the boy had always replied with monosyllabic words or few ones and often dismissed it with I need to watch the road or something like that. Not literally, that was just Naruto's childish mind translating. After lunch on the second day, though, they had stopped. They had been sitting in the middle of a clearing for half an hour already. The Uchiha couldn't use that excuse anymore. Yes. I'm a member of Anbu. That's what they're called. They didn't teach about supposedly secret teams of special shinobi operatives during the first year of academy, after all. Then, you're a super strong, super badass ninja, right? Yes. I'm strong. Itachi simply replied, resisting the urge to roll his eyes. But he allowed a smile to grace his lips. The kid was as annoying as his younger brother, it seemed. Even if their similarities stopped there then, he remembered that his younger brother had told him that there was just one kid who had his same grades in the academy and that had blonde hair. He connected the dots quickly. But you're not that much older than me, right? You're 12, right? Itachi smiled and nodded. He had asked such a question, how come you're that strong? He often asked himself that as well. Well, yes. That's because I always trained very hard, but I guess I have to admit that I was lucky to be born with a set of skills and natural affinities that eased my growth in power. Naruto blinked at that. He didn't have that much of a vocabulary yet. Itachi noticed this and sighed. He had almost forgot that he wasn't talking to Sasuke. I didn't get it, the blonde replied truthfully. Well, to become a powerful ninja, you have to train hard. That's a given. Follow me so far. Naruto nodded. Itachi mimicked the gesture. Good. Now, you must understand that each person is born with a certain set of abilities that make some things easier for them and some things more difficult as well. I was lucky enough to be born so that a lot of things come easy to me. You were born strong. Itachi shook his head. No. We can say I was born to be strong. The Uchiha put emphasis on the to be words while putting his hand into his belt pouch. As I said, to become strong you have to train hard. If you have abilities but you don't learn to use them, they are useless. Naruto nodded in understanding. His mind translated as. No matter if you know how to do something or you can do it something better if you don't actually do it better. Pocky. Naruto stared at the 2 sticks covered in chocolate that had been offered to him. He grinned and whispered thanks before taking one. The 2 munched in relative silence for a few minutes before something else occurred to Naruto. They weren't traveling anymore. Hey Itachi. Why did we stop here, by the way? We have an appointment. We arranged so that we would meet with the delegation from Suna and continue traveling together. Naruto was confused for just a second. It seemed that when it came to his friends, Naruto broke the 4th wall and added new words to his mind to comprehend people's speeches. Suna? You mean? Naruto. The blonde turned around and cerulean meat teal. His mouth opened and his eyes widened in surprise, then there was just place for a huge grin. He ran towards his target who was mimicking his actions and they hugged each other maybe a bit too harshly, but they didn't mind. After all, that's understandable when you see your best friend again after almost a year of not seeing each other. Naruto. Ara. You're here. Naruto actually felt some moisture gathering in the corner of his eyes while the 2 Suna shinobi acknowledged the Konoha's ones with a nod. The 2 Jinchuuriki hugged each other fiercely for what seemed like an eternity before Naruto broke it. Wow. Look at you. You've gotten taller. You too. Ah, look. Gaara turned around and showed Naruto his gourd. The blonde wowed in admiration. It had another shape compared to the photo the Reddit had sent him. It was more round. Like 2 balls one on top of the other. See? I changed the shape. Now I can carry much more sand. Yeah. It looks cool. And you even put stickers on it. But it's so heavy, Uchi. Naruto just laughed while Gaara rubbed his sore shoulders and the 2 exchanged those kind of antics for a good 30 minutes before the group of 2 Jinchuuriki and 4 shinobi resumed their traveling. Next stop. Kumagakure. Continues. What if Naruto is the leader of Jinchuuriki? End here and thanks for watching my video till the end.